We have a quorum.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have a
Good morning.
technical question before we start.
Mm-hmm.
I have all my documents loaded on the same laptop iPad that I'm now looking at. Would I be able to access them without disconnecting from the call?
Yeah, minimize.
Minimize.
He'll have to minimize the Zoom while he's looking at the document. Just minimize. Click the little minimize thing.
Click the
Where find that?
Does it
at
not
the
right?
top right. You look at the like a negative sign.
Okay. No, the iPad is like a phone. He'll just have to act like you're changing apps. Don't hang up. Just change apps at a time.
You have your office key.
Okay, let me try that before.
Yeah. Don't hang up. Just change the app to the document.
Ain't nobody coming.
Okay, so I have my documents. On Kindle. So
Open them up.
just change and go to Kindle.
Yes. And then every time you need to see who's speaking, then you click back over to the Zoom app.
Okay, all right. think I got it. Sorry, guys.
Don't feel badly. Don't feel badly, sir. We in the same boat.
Okay.
Nah, Doc, you've been practicing longer than him.
I don't know if that's good or not to be in the same boat.
It is not good. But I have Miss Cody to help me out. Okay,
right,
good morning. I'd like to call
Good morning.
the Employees Retirement System of the Government of the Virgin Islands regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Callwood,
Present.
Trustee Barry,
Present.
Trustee Glendinning,
Present.
Trustee Cohen,
Present.
Trustee Liger, absent. Trustee McDonald, absent. Trustee Smith, absent. Chairman Callender.
Present.
The chair, 5 present, 3 absent.
Right, so we have a quorum. Okay, we had mentioned about reordering I'm sorry. The next item on the agenda would be comments and suggestions from retirees. I am going to assume that we have none present. Ms. Coley?
There's none present, sir.
None present, okay.
Ask LaShawn if there's any comment on the YouTube.
Any chat on YouTube?
We wouldn't be able to tell who's on there. It just shows the viewers.
No, but the comments, they don't do.
I got it. I'll just see.
Trustee Callwood,
Yes, sir?
you were making a comment?
No, I was asking if they can't see the comments that came up.
Ms. Coley, you have an answer for that?
I'm looking.
Could I make a recommendation that if they're having a difficult time communicating with us, video, audio, whatever, to submit something to us and give them where to direct it, and then we'll try to get the information?
We can do that.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that since we are probably going to be having our meetings through this type of medium, that the board come up with a protocol or policy in regards to how we're gonna communicate with our members.
Working on it.
Thank you.
There is no one on the YouTube page.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, then I think they have a approval of the secretary's minutes for 2/27/2020. Do I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the minutes of the regular board meeting February 27th.
I will second that motion.
Trustee Colwood,
Yes.
Trustee Barry,
Yes.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Trustee Liger, absent. Trustee McDonald, absent. Trustee Smith, absent. Chairman Callender,
Yes.
Chair 4 yes, 3 absent.
All right, the minutes of 2/27/2020 have been approved.
Mr. Chairman, before you proceed, do we have a court reporter present?
Do we have?
A court reporter, stenographer?
I know I was supposed to ask that.
We do not. She will be transcribing from the recorded meeting.
Okay.
Okay, there was some concerns whether or not we should, or there was a recommendation to reorder the agenda so that our consultants and actually could make their presentations earlier. Would someone like to make that motion?
I so move. So just before, so we will, how will we order it? What order will they come? Will it be next?
You will go from Nikita, you'll go we'll go down to regular new business 3. We'll do 3 and 4.
Oh, okay.
Mr.
So,
Barrett, the answer is yes, we will do it right now.
okay. So yeah, I move that we reorder the agenda.
Do we need a second?
Second.
Trustee Colwood,
Yes.
Trustee Bowery,
Yes.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Trustee Liger, absent. Trustee McDonald, absent. Trustee Smith, absent. Chairman Callender,
Yes.
4 yes, 3 absent.
Okay, the motion has been approved. So we now have a presentation by the Makita Investment Group.
Thank you, Dr. Callender, and good morning, everyone. Gustavo and myself, Leo Festino, are both from Makita. Happy to be here and joining you today. We have a presentation that discusses the status of the world markets and what's going on in the world with respect to coronavirus and the implication on the economies and markets. I'll provide some initial commentary, then turn it over to Gustavo, and then make some concluding remarks. To start, this is a difficult but not quite an unprecedented time. It's new for us because we haven't lived through something like this during our lifetimes, but at different times, if you recall back the Spanish flu, it took quite a heavy toll. By some estimates, 25% of the world population at the time was affected, and it lasted for 3 years, from 1918 through 1920. The death toll was difficult to know because the records weren't kept as nicely as they are today, and there's differences. Today we have a lot better healthcare resources, but on the other hand, the economies are much more integrated, which means that these viruses that can come up, like coronavirus, COVID-19, can transmit more easily. And the impact on the economies can be more pronounced simply because of the interconnectivity of all of the major global economies. So there's no way to sugarcoat this. I think some governments have tried to do that, and then they realize that the times don't allow for that, and those that didn't take prudent, decisive actions up front are suffering through increases in the headcounts of cases. The latest numbers are right about 500,000 cases worldwide. I would be shocked if within the next day or two, Italy, United States, maybe even Spain don't surpass China as having greater numbers. Now you have to take with a grain of salt what the Chinese government may be stating. So it's hard to know exactly what is the total number worldwide. But needless to say, the expectation is this number will continue to increase for the foreseeable future. Across other times in our history, we survived a lot of very difficult environments. We will survive this one as well, but it's going to get worse before it's going to get better. The markets have reacted very negatively since February 19th peak, at least in the US. During the next 3 or 4 weeks, there were very strong declines in some areas, over 40 or 50%. Energy was hit very hard, small cap stocks much harder than large ones. Value companies such as financials were hit very strong as well. There's been a strong rebound the last couple of days. Those are called bear market rallies. And if you go back through many other time periods, those also were fairly prevalent. There were 5 of these runs during the last GFC between 2007 and 2009. Fortunately, the system is in a very good position to withstand this pandemic and the market environment. You will recall that, for different reasons, we've been cutting back the exposure to equities, and so very little equities remain in place today, which means all of this volatility, these negative declines of 20, 30, or 40% have had minimal impact to the system. And the bond holdings held up pretty well. So as you will see, the performance for the fund is right about flat. Many of the peers are down 20% or more. With respect to Nikita, your advisor, we're in a very good position. We have the right technologies and resources. All of our employees are healthy. Everybody's working remotely. Everybody has all the tools that we need to do the work. Many of us, like Gustavo and myself, are very used to traveling and working remotely. So for us, it's really not a lot of changes. For some of our colleagues that are more used to working at the office, it could present some challenges, but we're all dealing with that. We are having multiple conversations internally and with clients as well. And from that perspective, I feel very reassured that we're doing well. We're also very sound financially. We have no debt. And from that perspective, we feel that we're in a very solid position to help our clients. With that, I will pause and see if there are any questions. If not, I'll pass it over to Gustavo to start with the first few pages of our presentation, which is about as updated as it can be, just a few days old, but the markets have moved so much even within these days, and we'll try to provide some additional commentary where appropriate.
Just one clarification for me. You said that the system is in a good position. I'm assuming you're talking about our system?
Yes, I'm talking about your system with respect to the impact of the market reaction to primarily the coronavirus spread. Most pension funds have 40, 50 or more % in equities. You have a much lower weight, so the decline of 20, 30, 40% in the stock markets globally has had a much smaller proportional impact to the fund's performance. As we will discuss later, however, the performance of the fund, has some impact into the viability and longevity of the system, but it's not the primary determinant. But nonetheless, we want to do everything we can to try to ensure the best possible performance for the fund.
Okay, I understood that part. It just wasn't clear that you were talking about our system. And one last thing on this point. Did you say that the the cases are now worldwide are now approaching half a million.
Yes, just under.
Okay.
So Chair, I have a
That's
question.
quite a big jump from
Yes.
the 220 in your opinion.
Yes, and that you can see the exponential growth. The deaths are about 22,000 and change. And again, we expect this not just to increase, but to increase by larger numbers before these
Okay.
numbers get better.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Leo,
Yes,
we
sir.
have approximately about 70 million in domestic equity right now. Would you say that we maybe should preserve cash and move it to cash?
I'm not sure I heard the question, but we do have a process, for everybody's sake, that we have been reducing gradually, and that is the plan. So the next rebalancing will be to continue to redeem from equities and move into fixed income and cash, because that will be needed to de-risk the plan to ensure a soft landing. Gustavo, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think so Leo pretty much covered on his commentaries. If you follow the slides on the deck, the first couple of pages.
May I intervene, sir? I apologize. Just to clarify the response to Mr. Nibbs. I was understanding his question to be whether we ought to move up our timetable for going more liquid. And I'm not sure. First of all, I'm not sure if that was a question, Mr. Nibbs, and if so, what's the answer to that? Should we make those moves now as opposed to waiting for the normal rebalancing timetable?
I can answer that question. So Leo was referring to that we have a plan in place for liquidity.
Yeah.
It is right that in a moment like this, the number one issue is access to liquidity. For the U.S. Virgin Islands system, currently that is not an issue because we have been working on that plan for quite some time now, since around 2016. For the last 2 years, we were making sure that we have in cash at least a year of the net outflows that the system is projected for that year. It's around $100 million, and this is how much the system is sitting in cash. So we are going to continue within that plan unless we need to accelerate liquidity just because money is coming from the plan sponsor are being reduced or diminished, minimized. But if not, we are within plan, and so far nothing is letting that we should be changing that. There is a timetable that has been shared with the board and with the staff that we've been working on in terms of which are the assets that we should be redeeming towards this soft landing that Leo was telling you before. So straight answer is we have enough liquid asset as we speak to cover a year's out of net cash flows.
Gustavo, what is the expected date for liquidating the remaining equity position?
It is between Q2 and Q3, so we'll be in the next 3 or 6 months.
Okay.
So just so the advice is that we hold the line. Is that what the advice you're giving us? As opposed, I mean, given the fact that I know we have a small equity exposure, relatively small, but the value of those seem to be going down. And the latest projection we have is that we're going to need those, if not this year, next year. So just to be clear, are you advising us to hold the line as opposed to trying to minimize the impact of the reduced value of the equities at this point?
What you're talking about is exactly what we've been putting as a plan since 2016. That is called dynamic asset allocation. We're moving out of equities towards bonds since then. At this point, we have a really small allocation in equities, and we have access to liquidity for a year. So there's no need at this point to deviate from the plan. I mean, you're right. The stock's projected to going down. The next day going up. There's a lot of volatility for sure, but we have the issue is that the biggest issue is liquidity, that you don't have access, or you will need to sell asset positions that are underwater just to access to liquidity. That thankfully we have been planning for a situation like this for quite some time now, so we don't need to make any changes to our plan as we speak.
Okay. Okay.
That could evolve, though, as I mentioned before, if we see that there is a change in the net cash inflows that, working with the actuary, are projected for the next year or so. If we see that there's some change in the cash inflows that will affect the total net outflows projected, then we might need to accelerate the plan at some point to get access to more liquidity.
Gustavo, what are the current assets right now, as best as you can tell?
I will tell you in a second, Rocky.
Hi, morning, Glenville Henderson. Just joined the call. I'm sorry, I had some internet issue this morning. As of yesterday, total assets, including everything we have local, would be about 606 million.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Local assets.
Henderson, what would be the non-local assets?
The non-local assets would be, I guess, what we currently have in the index funds, the private equity with Mesero, that's still throwing off cash flow. And I think that's pretty much it right now.
Yeah, but I meant the value, if you have it as
the value, I'm sorry. Hold 1 second. The value of the non-local assets currently is about, as of yesterday, just give me a quick second. We're at about 389 million.
Thank you.
Glenville, are most of those monies liquidated by like the next 2 years?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, look, if you have $600 million on hand, and we're paying out about $280 million in benefit payments a year, plus some expenses. If we don't get any more additional contributions,
I'm sorry, Alwyn. I want to update that number I just gave because I forgot. My schedule have everything breaking out, and I forgot to include the cash. So I'm sorry. Hold 1 second.
It's around 500 million.
Right.
So it's about 500 million in
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, I forgot to include the cash.
Right. So if we don't have any additional income, investment, or contributions, and as long as we don't lose any more money, you basically have about almost 2 years of liquidity.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenville, the 100, does that make the total about 700 million instead of 606?
No, 606 is the total. When I was breaking out, as Leo asked for what we have that was not local, I forgot to add the cash amount that we had also at State Street.
Got it.
From my schedule.
Okay.
So 606 would be the total as of right now, estimated.
So in rough numbers, you have around 400 million in liquid assets. You have 100 million in cash, that brings it up to 500, and you have around an extra 100 million in local assets. So within cash and liquid assets, you have 500 million roughly around that.
Yeah, and share how much is equities within those 500 million.
It's around 60 million or so.
So very little market exposure. As
Yes.
Actually, no equities right now because we did liquidate out of the value and the growth funds. So we're at about 40 million right now in equities.
So even less, and those sales were actually done before the market crash.
Yes,
So, you know, by
yes,
luck.
they were. Yeah, we got out before all hell broke loose.
So, and the reason why it's because, you know, that has been part of the plan since 2016, right? We, you know, month by month, quarter by quarter, we are advising where the plan is to a soft landing. And the situation like this is a statement. Thanks God we have put this plan together. Leo mentioned also if I can refer to page 4, actually 5, on the presentation that we sent. Leo mentioned the performance for the retirement system. So to remind you that fiscal year differs from calendar year. So I'm going to give you those two numbers that are stated on that page. The first one you will see minus 2.8, that including, yes, this is as of Tuesday. So including yesterday's, I believe is minus 2.4 or minus 2.2 for the year. That means from the 1st of January to yesterday. But, you know, when we look into the fiscal year, starting on October 1st of 2019, we are around minus 0.4, around flat, I would say, for the fiscal year. When you compare this to the rest of your peers, to the rest of the universe, it pretty much would be in the top, I'm betting my money, in the top percentile of the best performance plans. We are seeing numbers of minus 15, minus 17, minus 20 in some clients, depending on the equity exposure that they have so far this year. So, you know, this is this is why we prepare this glide path that is called dynamic allocation for situations like this. Imagine we were talking about $500 million in liquid assets. If we would have been down 20%, that would mean that we will be going down $100 million, right? Just you know, back of the envelope calculation. 20% down, we will be down $100 million. We avoided that. We are flat. So this is a statement that, you know, this is what we prepare this plan for. And unfortunately, we are seeing it work. But the plan that we put together is working. Leo, do you want to comment about what we are expecting for in terms of markets and a little bit of the future, if we can predict anything?
Sure, we can go to slide 17. We expect lots of disruptions, both on the supply and on the demand side. On the supply side, employees are not able to go to factories or to provide the work, so factories have to close, at least temporarily. Some will not be able to sustain that because they may have thin profit margins or excessive amounts of debt that they may not be able to repay, which will impact the labor force. Today, the unemployment claims in the US were just announced this morning. They jumped from roughly 220,000 to 3.3 million. That is a tremendous jump that parallels what we've seen in other economies, including Canada, which I think recently passed theirs. So that is tremendously disruptive. This affects then the wealth of the average person, the wealth of the consumer, which will be consuming less. It affects consumer sentiment. It reduces demand for goods and services. And from that perspective, it creates a very difficult cycle. As a result, governments around the world have begun implementing fiscal as well as monetary strategies. You can see some of those in the next page. I think we mentioned a little bit of that. How that will play out is a bit of an unknown. Will a virus be affected by fiscal and monetary stimulus? Not really, but maybe the economy will. To what degree, we don't know. Interest rates are already quite low. So to some degree, monetary stimulus will be reduced. If you'll recall prior recessions, on average, the Fed reduces interest rates by about 5 to 5.5%. Definitely we can't do it if we're starting with rates between 1 and 2%. One thing is for sure, we expect the heightened volatility to continue for at least the foreseeable future. Different levels like the VIX, which is a fear index, and it measures the volatility in the markets, have increased above the levels of 2007 through 2009 global financial crisis. From our perspective, these crises also present opportunities for investors that have access to liquidity and cash and have the ability to deploy capital at times that appear to be unfavorable. On the long term, these things usually work themselves out and turn out to be net positives. For Virgin Islands, it's a little different just because of the liability stream, which continues to draw capital. And as a result, there's going to be no benefit in this recovery unless there is a tremendous cash infusion, which, as we've seen now for the past 8 years, it has not really occurred. And so for us, it's continue to play defense and to reduce volatility to make sure we can get to about 2023 with enough assets. That has been the goal now for multiple years, as Gustavo has mentioned. I think I will pause there. Definitely, we have a lot more slides and areas we can cover. I know you mentioned you had a fairly busy meeting today, so we don't want to monopolize it and take more time if it is not needed. So we welcome any questions that you might have.
Mr. Burry, you on?
Well, I mean, I think I got most of my question answered. My my big concern was, I know we have a fairly limited exposure in the equities component, but I'm also aware of the rapid fall in the market. And I was concerned that we may miss out of an opportunity to cash in and find out that we need that to liquidate those investments at the time when the value has significantly dropped as compared to today. I mean, one of the issues, one of my concerns is the fact that, as mentioned earlier, we said that we have enough cash for 2 years, roughly. That assumes that the government continues to make its contributions, and there's a real concern there from my point of view, because as you know, the economy our economy is very much impacted. We're a tourism-based economy, and we know what's happening to the cruise industry and even the overnight stays. That's going to be heavily impacted, which in turn is going to impact the government's tax collections, which in turn is going to impact their own liquidity and their ability to stay current in those contributions. We may or may not, that timetable we think we have in terms of of our current liquidity may be shortened if the government can keep up with his payments, or if in fact the market deteriorates even further. So I just wanted to know that as a board, that we're confident that we're fully advised by our investment consultants as to the timing of the liquidation of the assets, especially the equity portion of it.
Yeah, so again, this is Leo, and I think you bring some good points. Again, if we keep in mind that this is only $40 million and nobody can time the markets, just in the last 2-3 business days, stock markets rebounded over 15-17%. By the time you place an order, it can be up or down, 10-20% at these volatility levels. I think it is possible that this may accelerate, but I think trying to call the specific time at which we should do the decision is a foolish game. We have a process in place, and if for some reason some of the variables, like for example, the contributions from the employer and the employee change, then we will revisit the model. But I think trying to identify the best time to process a sell order of equities first is very difficult to execute well. Secondly, unfortunately, it's a smaller amount. If you put things in perspective and you have 40 million, a plus or minus 10% gain or loss, it's 4 million out or down. If you put 4 million into the perspective of what a monthly payment is, it's a fraction. And so we're talking about days or weeks. So from that perspective, while obviously every penny and every $1 million works and is very important, it's not gonna make or break. It has a very limited impact, and it's more important to maintain a good process going forward. So we are in constant communication with your investment staff, with Henderson, and also with Neves to address this. And if we are made aware that the cash flow situation is changing, we will revisit with the model, see what we need to do, and if we need to make changes, we can. I will remind you also that there's hundreds of millions of dollars in bond index funds that we can tap. So the liquidity is not just due from the equity side. Of course, that's what the plan calls for, to continue to take risk off the portfolio. But there's also other sources if for some reason we have to go different routes to get access to cash.
Also, if I may, just to put a little bit of perspective on it, if that whole stock portfolio of $40 million disappeared completely overnight, it would only affect your ability to pay benefits by about a month and a half. So it's not a lot of money compared to the benefits.
Plus, what I will add also is the plan that we put together back in 2016 calls not for just the liquidity of 1 year that we have covered in cash, but also takes into consideration that plan, the year number 2, year number 3, 4, and so on. And depending on the liquidity needs of those years, the proximity to the end of the fund, we have been converted those into assets that are less risky and more liquid. So that is the reason why we are like 4 or 5 years or 3 years towards the end, and we have almost nothing at this point in equities, and the big majority of it in bonds. So even if we, hopefully not, but go into a situation in which the cash needs will double as we are projecting today. To give you an idea, we were projecting around $110 million of cash net cash outflows during the year. And during the last 3 years, we had 2017 fiscal year, a net cash flow of 115. Fiscal year 2018, we have a net cash flow of minus 46. And in fiscal year 2019, we have a net cash outflow of 79. So we weren't that far away from the projection. The point is, if we have, so we were forecasting for 100 to 100 million net cash outflows. If that doubles, we can easily tap into the bond portfolios, and that will give us the necessary liquidity for the rest of the life of the fund.
Want to note that some of the offset to those net cash flows. I mean, we've liquidated Carambola. We've gotten some cash flow from that. We've liquidated recently VI Finest Food. We've gotten some cash flow from that. So we've been liquidating a large portion of our illiquid local assets. I think right now we're only down to the real assets that we have currently, the land, the office buildings, of course, Haven site, and we still have the Kazi loan outstanding. But we've basically liquidated out of most of the other illiquid assets that we had on the books.
So overall, if I can just summarize the investment performance, I think the trustees, staff, and all of the stakeholders of the system should feel quite pleased with this decision. I know in some years it seemed challenging to maintain a de-risked portfolio where the stocks were going up, but given the liability stream and the unique position of the system, it was the right thing to do. And when you balance the good times with the bad times, I think you came out ahead. I think if you were to look at the performance of pension funds over the last 1, 3, 5 years, Virgin Islands will be at the top, if not the best performing fund, at least certainly over more short time horizons with a lot less volatility. So to some degree, there's some lag behind it, but there was also some thought that was put behind it to ensure that for unique circumstances, the portfolio is adequately positioned. So we are very pleased with that, and I think the trustees did a very good job holding that view.
Okay.
Thank you. Trustee Caldwell, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Trustee Cohen?
No questions.
Okay. Anyone else with any question?
But of course, I have a recommendation. Make sure that Trustee Barry receives that. Remember when the asset allocation was done? Can we make sure Trustee Barry gets a copy of that?
Yes.
You're speaking about the updated dynamic asset allocation model?
The original one and the update, so that he can know how we started the process.
Sure, that's no problem. I'll get it over to Trustee.
I'm comfortable with the presentation. I just think that as a board, we have a fiduciary responsibility to be able to say that we have considered this issue. We've been fully briefed by our consultants and advised, and fully briefed and fully advised. We hear some talk about the long run performance, and from my background, I'm aware of that's the way we should look at it. However, we report to politicians who have a shorter horizon for concerns, and I know that if things don't work the way we think it will work or we hope it will work, the question will be asked as to where was the board. And I feel comfortable that as a board we could stand up and say that we considered it. We were fully briefed by our consultants and fully advised, and we acted or delayed our action pursuant to that advice. So I'm good.
We can hear you, Dr. Callender. You're muted.
Sorry. Mr. Bowie, I don't think it makes a difference what we tell those politicians. They're experts and they think they know everything. So I am personally satisfied with our consultants and our actuary.
Dr. Calendar, the other day you were up in front of the legislature and they accosted you about we were too conservative in terms of our equity position. I would like to see you go before the legislature sometime soon and see exactly how their how their point of view has changed.
We got some stuff for the district court. I thought it was the decision, but it's not.
Okay. Okay, so I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Dr. Cohen, you said you had no questions, right?
That is correct.
Anyone
No
else?
questions for Cohen.
Anyone else? Okay, as usual, thank you, gentlemen, for your great presentation.
Thank you. We'll stay here through the presentation from the actuary as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I may need to jump out. Sorry, I have another call, but I leave you in.
Thank you, Gustavo. I'll stay here.
Good hand. All right. Take care.
Okay,
Be safe, please.
All right, sir.
All right, Gustavo.
Take care.
Okay, the gentleman from Siegel.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So Rocky and I have done some additional projections, but hopefully everybody's doing well. First and foremost, hopefully everybody's adjusting to this new normal, as we all are. Here in New York, there's a lot of, we seem to be the epicenter of this crisis at this moment, but we are trying to be as business as usual, or business is not usual, but we're trying our best to do everything we can. We have the capacity, the technology capacity to keep working, thank God. So we're still doing that. So just trying to build off on what Leo and Gustavo's presentation. What we've done is basically updated the projections using the new contribution rate that we know is effective January 1, 2020. The contribution rate from the government increased from 20.5% to 23.5%. We've also assumed that the return for the fiscal year that you're currently in will be about 0%. And then after that, we continued assuming the 7%. But even if we don't assume the 7%, even if we assume, let's say, it's going to be flat all the way, your projected insolvency is still going to be the same. It's going to be around 2023, 2024. But as one of the board members said earlier, really the biggest issue you have is not the investment. The biggest issue is whether or not you're going to be able to collect those contributions from the government and from the employees. So the investment return is really what's going to what the investment return is going to impact is when you're going to run out of the cash reserves and liquid assets that you have now. But in essence, once you run out of money, the question is how much benefits will you be able to pay? Really, it depends on how much contributions you'll be getting in. So if everybody has the presentation that was forwarded yesterday, if you turn to page 2 of that presentation. So basically, if everybody's on that presentation, what we're showing here is on the yellow line represents the percent of benefits that you can pay going forward. So for the next 3 years, assuming that we'll continue to receive employer and employee contributions, we expect that you'll be able to pay the full benefits. But once all the money runs out, essentially you're going to be a pay-as-you-go system. So by 2024, assuming, again, and it's a big assumption at this point, if we have the same level of participation, the same level of contribution coming in, both for employer and employee contributions, the level of benefits that you'll be able to pay will be 45 cents on the dollar. So if someone is receiving $1,000 benefit a month, their benefit will go down to $450. And as you can see from that projection, the yellow line keeps on going up further as you over the years, and that's because your contributions are expected to go up, and at the same time, the benefit payments are gradually going down as more and more retirees are coming in from the tier 2 group instead of the tier 1. But again, the biggest if here is if you're going to receive the contributions that are coming in. If you go back 2 or 3 years ago when you had your hurricane, if you recall, we had some issues collecting some of those contributions. So if that happens, not only that will accelerate when you're going to run out of money, that will also, lower the amount of full benefits that you could pay going forward. I'm going to pause there for a second and see if anybody has questions or comments.
Aldwin, this is Kathy.
Well,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to know, did you make assumptions? Did you keep the payroll level at the same amount? Because I'm assuming if this happens, that you're going to have a lot of people retire and a lot of people leave the system. So I don't think the contribution will be the amounts will be the same. So did you take that into consideration?
No, we did not take that into account. I mean, at this point, we really don't know what is going to happen, but definitely that will impact it. If tomorrow the governor says that we're cutting government services from 8,000 to 5,000, not only you're gonna get a reduction in the contribution to the system, it's also going to be an increase in the benefits, as you said, because those people will going to retire. And I think we saw that partly back in 2011 when people were laid off. There was a bunch of people that retired, and we saw the contributions went down, so that had a negative impact. So we expect the same thing here. And like I said, basically you're going to run out of money between 2022 to 2024. So right now you have about $500–600 million of assets. If you don't have any contributions coming in and you have flat investment income over the next 2-3 years, that 600 million will last about 2 years in benefit payments. And then after that, what you're going to be able to pay depends on how much money you can actually get in, and the decrease on that will be driven by the amount of amount of government people who will continue to work, whoever will be considered essential services, and also just the collectability of it. I don't know if we're going to see the same thing that we saw 3 years ago when the government basically held on to the contributions that they were withholding from employees. So there's a lot of big ifs there, but basically, as we get closer to it, what we really need to do is have a system in place to figure out how systematically we're going to adjust the benefits as with the amount of contributions coming in and the amount of assets going down to zero.
But Kathy, included in the presentation is a decrease from about 9,300 actives to about 8,700 actives, because we already had because of the hurricanes and the lack of recovery for the hotels, there was already a built-in reduction in employment of that amount. The question is, will there be any more reduction in employment? And that we'd be happy to model some ideas for you, but it just depends on the number of people that end up working. The other thing, you want to go to page, the third page, I believe it is.
Yeah.
This, in reality, once you run out of money, Kathy, you and I have talked about this, about the legality of taking money from actives that you're not really funding a benefit for them, you're taking it for them to pay other people's benefits. So if you were to only rely on the government's contribution in paying benefits, it would drop down under 30% probably in 2025.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it's clear that 45% is a factor that's depending on outside factors, and so I don't want people to think that they're guaranteed that 45%. It could be higher, it could be lower.
Correct, absolutely correct. And the other thing is, like Alderman was saying, like Gustavo was saying, and the board member earlier, if the government cannot make any more contributions, you're going to run out of money in about 2 years, which would be around April 1st of 2022.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Bory, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Just a quick question on illegality. I'm going to throw this out to Kathy, I guess. I have been for some time a little bit bothered, and this is probably not our issue, but more the government. I've been bothered about the requirement or the policy that says that as a condition of your employment, you must contribute to the system. But to a system that you're also saying is going to be insolvent in 2 years, not 3 years. I mean, this may be a little bit off topic here, but I just throw it out there because it bothered me for a while that we insist. I mean, the contribution rate is 11.5% for employees, and what we're saying is that we're reducing my pay by 11.5% to contribute to a system that you're also saying at the same rate is going to be insolvent in 2 years. So I mean, I'm not sure whether anybody wants to answer that, or not even sure if I'm asking for an answer. But it's something that's bothered me, and it seems to be of some questionable legality in a sense that we seem to be making. The government is making a false promise.
Well,
you're promising some benefits that you're promising some benefits. You're promising benefits that you're also saying that you won't be able to fulfill.
Well, I think the short answer is simply because that's what the law provides, and all GRS is doing is enforcing or complying with the law. Unless and until the legislature changes that, we have no choice. I mean, the government has an obligation to pay, and we collect the monies, or until somebody challenges it in court and the judge issues an injunction or something that says, this employee's been employed, he's never going to make the 30 years. The system said they're going to run out of money 2 or 3 years. He's paying for a benefit he's never going to receive, and therefore order the GRS not to deduct or accept any contributions from this person's salary. Under those circumstances, then what you're suggesting or saying is correct. But until it changes either by the legislature changing the law or court issuing something, we simply comply with the law.
And just to add to that, I was just going to add to that, Mr. Bowery, that it doesn't alleviate the government of having that liability because they've made a promise. It's a contract to the employees, and they've made that promise. So I expect employees would go to court, or the members would go to court and sue on that contract, and I'm assuming the government would lose and would be obligated to pay those benefits in some way, either out of the general fund or however. So I agree with you. It is very difficult to, and that's one of the recruiting issues that the government has, is you're making promises that you have a retirement system, and everyone knows the retirement system is failing. But the government would not be relieved. Just because the system runs out of money doesn't relieve the government of that obligation.
And that's one of the issues, and that's one of the issues that we have as we try to recruit teachers and other professionals. And the first thing they say was like, well, your retirement said one of the biggest draw for people coming to our government for years was our benefits package. But now with the retirement system up in the air, a lot of people say, so why am I going to do this when you can't even guarantee the money is going to be there when I retire? And I said, well, you signed the contract, the government's obligated to finding your money from wherever the source will be. So I say, once you sign your contract, they're obligated to pay you upon your retirement. And that's kind of my selling point in the past 3 years. How factual it is, I wasn't sure, but I know legally that was the grounds I stood on when I go out and we do the recruitment and we have that conversation with potential members.
Okay. So, sorry to put us off track here for a little bit. I have a question that's more to the presentation, and I want to bring up, and I would like to hear the board's reaction. I personally would like to see an analysis done, an analysis run that shows that if we were to try to implement a plan to soften the landing, right now, as it stands, we are projecting we pay 100% up until 2023, and we fall off a cliff, a 55% cut in 2024. And if we could soften that landing by not paying 100% for a couple of years and push that 45% out a couple of years. I know that we took a lot of heat in the hearing about even thinking about that, but I think as a board we have a responsibility to think about such things and think about them seriously. So you know, and we have an obligation, even if it requires, even if we don't have the authority to do it on our own, we have an obligation to be able to offer that to the legislature, I think, who presumably has the power to consider that as an option.
If I might add to the board members' comments there, we have done some projections in the past with the possibility of reducing or suspending benefits to a lower amount, and depending on the amount of governmental contribution support later on, you could actually sustain the plan paying 55 or 60% of the benefit for a long period of time. Your question, as I understand it, would be, if we think the government's not going to be able to pay any contributions, can we lower the amount and extend maybe another year or 2 or 3 by maybe paying 75% instead of 100%? And we can clearly model that and let you know how long that would extend insolvency out, if that was of interest to you.
But that's a definite interest to me. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. I guess I'd like to hear the rest of the board.
Trustee Bowie paid the Williams, before the rest of the board chimed in, I think what Rocky's also referring to, back in October, the board did take a vote that if the government didn't do anything, that the board would institute a 45% reduction. You know, we did that, I think, on the hopes that the government would come to its senses, do something. We met with them subsequent to that. It was clear that nothing was going to be done. And obviously we are where we are today. Even though, you know, from a legal standpoint, we don't have any legal authority to make that reduction. And we certainly anticipated that somebody would take the board to court and then the judge will make his or her decision. But, you know, in the what we're hoping for is that the legislature and the governor would come on board and say, given all of the factors, we all agree that, you know, there should be a reduction in annuity payments. And therefore, if the legislature did that, then at least the board would have some legal authority for making that reduction rather than doing it on its own. It doesn't appear that that's about to happen because the senators and the governor both clearly said that they weren't going to agree to any reduction in annuity payments.
Yeah, but that was before Corona.
Well, and that may very well be true. Maybe people have a change of heart now, given this reality. And maybe that's a conversation. Huh?
I said the government will have to revisit that position when they can't, they're having difficulty making the if they begin to have difficulty making their contributions, they may want to revisit that. And so, I mean, a 45%, I don't know, maybe we could model a couple of options, 30%, and see how far it pushes out. Give them some time to study the ship and to recover. I think, I know we talked about it before. I know you guys talked about it before. And I was at the meeting at the town meeting at St. Croix, where you guys took a lot of heat for it. But, I think we have a fiduciary responsibility in looking out for the interests of the retirees, even if they don't recognize it, even if they don't recognize at the moment that it's in their interest. I think we need to. I think we need to revive that conversation.
And just to follow up on that, Mr. Bowery, it's not only the interest of the retirees, but I think you have an interest to look out for the active members too, who are paying the benefits and aren't planning or might not receive anything.
Yeah.
Right. And just to add to that 45% that we modeled before, that was really just for the tier 1. I mean, it doesn't sound like a soft landing, 45%, but the rationale for the 45% is basically to equalize or the tier 1 formula with the tier 2 formula that new hires have now. So that 45% is only affecting the tier 1. The tier 2 will not have any benefit reduction under that scenario. But if nothing is done, as we shown in this presentation, across the board, it's going to be a 55% reduction at the very least.
And also that goes back to the point that tier 2 contributions, the members are essentially paying for their own benefit as long as that money is not has to be spent to pay for the tier 1 benefits. So if you bring tier 1 down to tier 2 level, then the tier 2 people are paying for themselves, and you've got a little bit of equilibrium in the system based on the amount of the government contributions today.
Okay. So I would like, Mr. Chairman, if we could get have the actuaries to run a couple of scenarios that maybe we have a couple different percent, a 30%, see where that pushes, and any other tweaking we could do to stretch to push that 24 time out a couple of years to give the government some time to recoup from Corona and whatever else is coming on. I mean that's.
So, but I have absolutely no problem. In fact, I'm sure they can do that overnight. But remember now, the legislature and the administration have to buy into this.
I understand, Mr. Chairman, and you and I have had this conversation before. I mean, for me personally, as long as I feel comfortable that I've given the best advice and done the due diligence, what they say and how they criticize me doesn't really bother me too much. I get bothered when I don't feel that I did what I was supposed to do. And I think my fiduciary responsibility at this point in time is to be able to offer the government some options that could soften the landing somewhat. Instead of dropping 55% in 24, maybe we drop 30% in 74 or 40 and push out the 45%, drop a couple more years, I don't know. what he'll do. But just to respond to your specific comment, my personal thing is that, I mean, as long as I think I've given the best advice and done my due diligence, I'm comfortable with whatever flag comes my way. That's just me.
Okay. Dr. Cohen, any comments or questions?
No, but just to review the comment, the report that we got from Siegel in December, I think it's in our minutes, covers a lot of this, not counting the virus wild card.
Right. Okay. Trustee Caldwell? She left.
No comment, no questions. You know,
You know, what is interesting is that at least 8 of my friends who live off island call me regarding the proposed 30% reduction in the annuity. And at least 7 of them were incensed that we would even think of doing that. Only 1 understood that it made sense to do it now and hope to prolong the system. Everybody wants his or her money right now. They've earned it and they want it. Well,
Mr. Chairman, that's funny because after our town hall meeting on St. Thomas, and Mr. Nibbs could chime in, we had a discussion with a couple of members outside of the CHS auditorium, and a lot of them were implying that they will have no problem with the cut and actually voiced their opinion as to they wanted to know why the trustees haven't done it as yet, to be quite frank.
Actually, one of those persons came to me and actually I was incensed that we hadn't done it. You're right. Yeah, but okay, we'll actually see what you can do to get some of those proposals for us, and then we can submit them to, I guess, the governor and maybe the legislature.
Ask you a question. How is the legislature meeting these days? Are they actually meeting in person?
Tomorrow. We have an emergency meeting tomorrow.
They have not been meeting, Rocky, since they were exposed. Somebody was exposed to the virus. They hadn't been meeting in person.
They have an emergency meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Are they going to do it?
I think.
No, go ahead.
I think they're doing it. I think, and I'm not 100% sure. I think they're doing it by some kind of remote option. I think. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. I mean, I think the law requires them to meet in St. Thomas, in the Capitol building. So they may want to just have enough people there to establish the quorum physically in that building, and maybe the others call in by just to keep the social distancing thing. I don't know. But they do have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow.
A quick question. Do you guys have a sense what percentage of the people in GERS actives right now are considered essential personnel?
Well, you know, from my perspective, all are essential. However, we have came up with a protocol, and before the governor came out, we planned to do that in regular session. Before the governor came out with his executive order, we had come up with a plan that we would have staggered employees, maybe coming 2 days a week in different shifts. We know that, to me personally, the most critical obviously is the payroll and me doing our payables, but we did have a plan where they would stagger, and for anyone who can work at home remotely, we encouraged it. Everyone couldn't because they didn't have a laptop, and we didn't have, they may have a personal laptop. IT didn't want them to use their personal laptop, that type of thing. But I think we have that covered.
Yeah, I laugh because I was just on a text with some people because outside of GRS itself, our commissioner had basically deemed almost every employee essential. So everybody has been designated essential except for paraprofessionals and the school monitors. But the school monitors are out there assisting with the feeding program.
Yeah.
But every employee in education, according to her memo that was sent out, is an essential employee.
Okay.
So we're just talking about now.
How are the schools doing? Are you doing distance learning at this point?
That's the plan.
That's the plan? Okay, good.
My son, he started today, last semester. Just one last thing back on the Siegel thing, if it was there. The discussion we've had about votes of on the 30% cut or whatever percent we have with it. It's that assumes that's the total amount we want to reduce. Do you guys have the ability to refine that a little bit? So, for example, if we could structure something where folks below some dollar amount don't get affected, or some staggered cut, so that the folks who making 1,000 just you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
One of the things, I mean, as a legislature trying to sell this thing, you know what the responsibility is going to be, that they have people just making $1,000 and you want to cut that by 30%. But if we could offer an option where it's not an across the board cut, but it's kind of structured to give different percentages to different categories, but still achieving the overall amount. That might give them some cover in terms of getting it per.
Mr. Bowery,
right.
This is Kathy. We had some
Yes.
issues. Rocky and I have looked at that, but we have some issues because you have some people who only work 10 years, and that's the reason that their annuity is low. But then you have somebody who worked 20 years and somebody who worked 30 years. And so it's kind of hard if you do it across the board, because then somebody who only worked 10 years and you cut somebody who worked 20 years, and when you cut them, they're lower than the person who worked 10 years. So we've been trying to figure out a way to do that without penalizing people who worked longer years but made less money.
Well, you know, everybody's gonna get penalized one way or the other. I mean, if it's dropped to 45%, what happens?
No, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying if you have somebody who's making $1,000 and they work 10 years, and you have somebody who worked 20 years and they're getting $1,100, you cut that $1,100 person, they worked the extra 10 years and they get a cut, and they're now below the person who only worked 10 years. So those are the kinds of things we have to look for and try to figure out how to do it so it's fair.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think as a first step, we want to just have an order of magnitude number. So if that number, let's say, is the 45% or 30% or 10%, that would be, you know, our model will show the impact of that. And if let's say we settle on 30%, the details on how we're going to get, you know, that 30% can be worked out later on. But I think the first step is to agree on the principle and the concept that, you know, we need basically 30% of the benefits to be cut in order to prolong or sustain the system. To Kathy's point, one way other plans have done to make it a little bit more equitable is define a formula based on the contributions. And, you know, so if we have, you know, an employee and we have the information on each employee's contributions, we can define a formula based on that, and whatever that amount comes out to be, that will be the benefit amount that person will get. And if that's a 10% or a 30% reduction or a 50% reduction, that's what it comes out to be. So that kind of takes care of, someone who's only paid in 10 years into the system, their benefit will be lower based on that formula.
One last question. Do you know of and could you share any examples where that has been done in other systems?
I don't think we have examples in the public sector, Rocky. But I know in multi-employer plans they have done some things like that.
Right. And the public sector to this point, to my knowledge, the only one that had any reductions was the state of Rhode Island. And I believe they had to reinstate those when they lost in court. But Kathy, we might want to research that and look at Rhode Island and see what they did.
Yeah, I believe the attorney who's on the other side and representing the GVI in that case was the mayor at the time and involved in it. But so I can get information on that.
Yeah, that's the Angel should know that very, very.
Yeah, that's Angel.
The other thing on the multi-employer side of the equation, they did have some laws in the book for cutting back benefits based on the age of the person you're cutting back, so that older retirees who presumably don't have as long to live and they're more fragile to their particular living situation, you cut them less than you would, say, someone in their late 50s or early 60s. So that's another way you could model it if we wanted to.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to go back to one of Mr. Bovey's earlier question, but procedurally, what would need to happen? The board has already passed a resolution saying there's a 45% cut. Well, recommending that. Assuming, once you review the analysis by Siegel, if you wanted to do something differently, it's really a matter of revisiting that resolution and making whatever changes. So the long and short of it is the board could do whatever it wants to do. So, you just have to look at the analysis and come to a consensus, make some decisions, and that's what you will go with.
And to go back with what Pedro was just saying, there is nothing in your legislation that tells you how to behave when the system's going insolvent. So you're in uncharted ground to a large extent.
And also there is that provision in the code that says that the GRS should only pay for benefits that have been funded. And so technically no retiree has fully funded their benefits. So there is a provision using that provision of the code where you could cut the benefits to the amount that they've actually funded it.
So Kathy, explain what that means.
Okay, because the code says that you must have the employee and employer contributions must, and along with any money, must fund the system. So whenever there's a deficiency and the GRS sends the actuarial report, the government is supposed to put in that deficit to fund the system. They have not done that. So the system hasn't been funded. So you can pay the percentage of what the employee and employer portion has funded. And Rocky, I don't recall what that amount was. I know we had discussed it.
Well,
and by funding, you mean the ADEC?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the ADEC right now is about 67%, and
yes.
the contribution is 23.5%. So that comes out to be about 35%. So in theory, if we follow that law, literally, you could cut the benefit by 65% now, because they're only funding 35 cents on the dollar.
Right.
It said we have to factor in employee contribution also.
Right. Yeah, I don't think
that's reflecting it.
Yeah, I don't think you would cut it that much, but I think that would be your legal argument. Based with the fact that the system is going insolvent, the fact that you still have active members that you need to protect, and that the government has not fully, the parties have not funded the system. This is the basis on which you are going to cut. And you're not cutting the full amount of which you should cut. So I think you could make a good legal argument for that.
Just give me those numbers again. The ADEC is 67% and the current contribution is at what?
23.5%.
And just FYI, the ADEC, the 67% was calculated at 10/1/19. So, or 10/1/18, 10/1/19.
10/1/18.
18. So it's expected to be higher by 10/1/19 and even higher by 10/1/20 if nothing else is done.
And the contribution was at what? 20? Contribution, that contribution number includes the employee portion?
No, that's strictly the government portion.
Okay. And it says what? Oh, the 23.5, I guess?
Yeah, it just went up to 23.5 in January. Before that, it was 20.5.
Okay. Okay.
But okay, then let me ask a question. Then the ADEC for someone who retired in 1980 would not be the same as someone who retired in 2000 then?
In my opinion, I think what you'd have to do is look at where you are today and say, based on the government's contribution and the employee's contribution, the money we get today, how much of the benefits are sustainable based on that contribution we're getting today? That's where the reduction has to be. That's where the 45% came from, as a reduction. Going back in time, like you just described, that could be, that's a whole different thing, because for example, the contribution rates were fairly low because the markets were so good. And that's kind of being unfair to people, just depending on how the markets were doing during the period they were working.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? If not, then we want to thank you both.
You're welcome. Good luck with everything, guys. We'll work up some options and some things and put together a situation.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Stay
Rocky.
safe and healthy.
All right.
Any other
I'm gonna disconnect as well. Sorry?
Rocky and Alvin, I'll be
Any other
reaching
questions?
out to you soon.
Sorry.
Okay. We'll be here.
Okay. Very good. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Leah, any other comments?
No, I just wanted to state to hear also the actuary's presentation and the questions from the board and any actions that may ultimately impact, the investment side. So I don't have any questions, but thank you for letting me listen.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Then we get back to our communication and correspondences.
Okay. I think the first piece of correspondence that you have in front of you is a First Bank advice of credit. That $5 million that was wired to our account was a result of the order by the Judge Gomez in regards to what the government consultant RSN came up with, that the government of the Virgin Islands owed the GERS from 2010, January 1, 2010 through December 31, 2018. And this amount was by court order. This does not include any interest. I think with the interest and penalties, it's gonna come up to about another between $700,000 and $800,000. So that $5,000 that transfer that was received based on a court order from the Judge Gomez. The other piece of correspondence is dated March 3, 2020. Addressed to the Employees Retirement System of the Government of the Virgin Islands in care of Mr. Austin L. Nibs, 43, should be 38. 4338 Comprehensive Garden Suite 1, St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, 00802-5751. So we got to request for information on GRS property appraisal, Estate Coakley Bay and Estate Hoffman and Nollyburg properties. Dear Mr. Nibs, we appreciate the opportunity to once again provide our real estate valuation services to the GERS. Please find attached a request for information for board properties of reference. We would also appreciate if you could provide a contact for the inspection of each property. We plan to coordinate a site visit as soon as possible. Thank you for your assistance. Mark McCluskey Purcell, McCluskey Mullet and Bonin Appraisers. The request for information included previous appraisal have been, the question was, what based on the previous appraisal that were done, was the assumptions the same, and I responded, previous appraisals have been developed on the assumption that 2 recorded estate roads within the boundary property could be relocated. Should this assumption be used for the current appraisal? And my response was yes. Please provide information regarding marketing efforts and listing properties for any request for bids and for a response or formal offer if you have occurred that this have occurred since the last appraisal completed in 2017. I responded, there was a $4 million appraisal that was offered prior to April 17, and prior to that there was a $6 million offer made. Please provide the most recent status of the property rezoning and related documentation as necessary. There were no rezoning of the property since the last appraisal. Please confirm the most recent plans for the parcel at this time. My response was to put the property on the market based on the board's intention, or consult with VI Housing Finance Authority if they're interested in purchasing the property. As for Estate Coakley Bay, the same information they were requesting. There were no bids or offers since the last appraisal in February 2017. There was no rezoning of that property since the last rezoning that was done, the initial rezoning. And the same thing as far as plans, as per the board's intentions to put the properties on the market or offer the properties to VI Housing Finance Authority.
Excuse me for 1 minute. Could I ask a point of information, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Excuse my ignorance, but is in St. Thomas, the estates Hoffman and Newellberg property, is that one property or 2 separate properties or adjoining properties?
One property. That's just the name
Okay,
of the
thank you very
estate.
much.
Thank you. This is a memorandum that came from the Office of Management and Budget in memorandum number 05-2020. It's to all departments and agency heads. It's from Jennifer C. O'Neill, Director, Office of Management and Budget. Its date is March 2nd, 2020. Regards to Senator Verley's request for information dated February 28, 2020. The board, in the past, they have requested, although we're not part of the general fund, we have our own budget. They usually request this information, and then when we go to the legislature, they may ask us questions about it, or they may not. The Office of Management and Budget, OMB, received copies of the Post-Audit Division Fiscal Year Budget Hearing Request. Please submit 2 copies of the requested information to OMB no later than Monday, April 6, 2020, to ensure timely transmission to the Post Auditor. This date may not be met because we are shut down until April 6. It has been circulated to the respective department heads, and we'll do our best to reply by then, or I'll ask for an extension. They want us to reply to the following information using this format in statement 1 and 2, provide the details of actual expenses by funds and prime account that went to accounting, a detailed listing of any charges listed in the other category in statement 1 and 2 went to accounting, a current listing of personnel employed by the department went to HR, a listing of all government U.S. grants and contributions received and disbursed, if applicable, through department, that's not applicable. A listing of all federal funds received by the department, that's not applicable. A listing of all vehicles assigned to department, that's in administration and operations. The detailed listing of all accounts held by the department to include beginning balances in each account. That's a very, very involved information, because we have to go back to all our bank accounts and give them that information that was assigned to accounting. A listing of all professional services contract for fiscal year 2020 that went to legal. A listing of all outstanding vendor payments owned by the department by fiscal year that went to accounting. All information in the department's role as lessor and or lessee that went to operations. Any other supporting documentation for purposes the department feel is important, that's in administration. Please note that fiscal year 2021 information is not considered official until the governor approves the fiscal year 2021 budget. Therefore, such information is not authorized for release. Please direct specific question on this matter to Mr. Sean A. Georges, Associate Director, Policy Management Unit at 774-0750, extension 239. Please be guided accordingly. Another piece of correspondence is an email from the Honorable Senator Alicia Barnes' office. It says it's dated March 12th, 2020. Subject is removal of bill number 33.0276 from the agenda. Good day, Mr. Nibbs. Please be advised bill number 33.0276 has been removed from the March 16, 2020 agenda for the Committee on Government Operations, Consumer Affairs, Energy, Environment, and Planning. Therefore, your attendance is no longer required at this committee meeting. Kind regards, Michelle L. Messer, Chief of Staff. This legislation was in regards to the giving the board, taking the authority from the board to set rates without the authorization of the legislature. That ends my presentation, communications and correspondences.
Any idea as to why they withdrew that?
They have done it so many times, I don't know why. I can't tell you.
Okay.
I know that we did let them know that the way the bill was drafted, it was not correct. We offered our suggestions to think what it should be, and then they withdrew it.
Oh, okay.
Trustees, any other questions for the administrator? Okay, chairperson's report. On March 9th, I sent a letter to the editors of the various print media regarding GERS issues. Only the consortium found it sufficiently newsworthy to print it in its opinion section on 3/10/2020. I attended the town hall meeting held on St. Thomas on March 12th. That the administrator did an excellent job while making a comprehensive presentation of the system. It amazes me that in spite of the documentation present, members continue to complain about the bad investments made by the board. I can understand such comments being made by the politicians in order to justify their lack of performance regarding the system. Here's some significant information. The last year that the plan sponsor provided more than 90% of the actuaries' recommended contribution was in 1995. the plan sponsor's required contribution percentage has progressively decreased to 36% in 2018. Between 2000 and 2018, the system was underfunded by more than $1,677,320,000. The system now has a funding level of approximately 23%, and it is the lowest funded system in the US. A healthy system should be at least 80% funded, and the senators have the temerity to say that funding was not the major problem with the system. In 2006, the legislature passed a bill allowing the board to engage in high-risk alternative investments because of the former's inability to properly fund the system. Unfortunately, the board fell for the scheme and invested $50 million in viaticals. Only $8 million were recovered from the system's investment portfolio. In 2009, the politicians again solicited assistance from the GERS by requesting that the system lend the owners of Carambola Beach Resort $15 million in order that the hotel could be kept open and residents of St. Croix could be employed. Unfortunately, within a few months, the owner defaulted on the loan, and that resulted in an equity ownership by GERS in the hotel. As supported by the administrator at the recent town hall meeting, Carambola was losing money regularly, and it was time to sell an asset that was not profitable. If the hotel had not been sold when there was some activity, we certainly would not have been able to sell it today. Let me assure our members that the reasons for the present state of the system have little to do with bad investments. The law precludes the system from investing more than 7% of its assets in alternative investments. During the legislative hearing held on February 20th, I was told that I knew nothing about investments because I did not know how much the market had increased from the start of the Trump administration. Some inflated number was given to make the senator look good. Today, I know that on March 28, 2020, the market was lower than it was at the start of the Trump administration. I also know that in the past week, the market has decreased by more than 35%. And if the board had put most of its funds in equities, as recommended by the experts in that committee, the system would be in a worse position than it is now. I appreciate and thank our consultants who we pay a paltry sum and who encourage the board members to manage risk, since we are not predictors of the market. In spite of the COVID-19 crisis, I will continue to remind the members that it is the responsibility of the plan sponsor to fund the system. After 28 years of underfunding, only funding matters at this time. My watchword until I am no longer a member of this system will be funding. End of my report. Any questions? I see some of the, any questions, any comments? Hearing none, we will move on to the administrator's report.
Is that report written?
Whose report?
The one you just.
No,
I can't find mine.
No, that was not in the. If you wish, I can send it to you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
I will. Thank you. Administrator's report.
Dr. Callender.
Yes, sir.
Just my 2 cents. I wish to thank all those who showed up at that meeting from representing GERS and took the hits that were unnecessary, but I felt it was something important, and I think at this point it was a productive meeting in the respect that more people are taking us seriously about this situation. So thank you.
I hope you're right, sir. I hope you're right.
I'd like to echo that with respect to the meeting, the town meeting on St. Croix. I know it was particularly aggressive, the response of some of the members in the community, and I think unfortunately the real message that we wanted to convey got lost in the shouting. So I think, notwithstanding that, I encourage us as a board and as management to continue not to be distracted by the noise. At the end of the day, we have a whole community's interest to protect. It's not just the membership, but we all know the impact that on the economy and the overall quality of life in the Virgin Islands if and when this thing goes on. So kudos to Mr. Nibs and his staff who took the brunt of the heat at those meetings. I think in the long run, you would have done the community a service. So, thank you. And don't be discouraged.
Administrator's report. Good morning. March 9th, I attended the GRS versus GVI evidentiary hearing. On March 10th, we presented at the St. Croix Retiree Group. I presented at the St. Croix Retiree Group lunch meeting. On that same date, I attended the town hall meeting in St. Croix. I want to thank all the employees in the St. Croix office for coming out and being our support. I must say that I also want to thank Kathy Smith, Sharon Sasso, and Glenville Henderson for being on the panel and responding to the questions. Also attending that meeting was Trustee Cohen and Trustee Barry. On March 12th, I participated in this internal budget committee meeting. And that same day, I attended the town hall meeting in St. Thomas, where Trustee Callender and Trustee Calwood were in attendance, and also the board council. Again, I want to thank Kathy Smith, Saran Soso, and Glenville for being on the panel, and I also want to thank all the St. Thomas employees who supported us and came out and did all the strenuous work. We just gave the facts. So it doesn't bother me if they scream and holler, but I was amazed that they're not concerned with the presentation as to the numbers. They just wanted to know about this 30% cut. They were more concerned about the 30% cuts. All in all, I think it was a very successful town hall meetings. On March 13th, we had an all-staff meeting within GRS where we brainstormed about the COVID-19 and what protocols would be in place. On March 17th, I met with our return to work retiree regarding outstanding obligations to the GRS. On March 18th, I met with the Havenside Mall tenants. This was done just as we're doing it now by Zoom. And we have some discussions further on in regular sessions regarding to their recommendations. On March 24th, I attended a pre-bid meeting regarding the request for the RFP for roofs for the Havenside Mall. And on March 25th, which was yesterday, I appeared on the Redfield Radio Show. I also attended a GRS YCO transition meeting. In regards to our member services or retiree application, as of through the end of March, we still have 175 applications pending for retirement in different format. Mostly they have not been processed and still pending because of missing NOPRs or missing retiree NOPRs. Refunds. Presently, we completed 333 cases. We have 105 pending. We have paid out $3.7 million. Of that $3.7 million, $3.4 million is for non-vested members. Debt benefits from October 2019 through February 28, 2020. We completed 31 debt benefit cases. We have 68 pending, and from October 2019 through February 28, 2020, we have paid out $1.2 million in debt benefits receipts to beneficiaries. As our life certificates, this is our second go round. This is the first go round in 2020 of issuing life certificates. We distributed 96 certificates, were sent out. 45 as of February 29 were validated. That means that they responded that they are still and it was still alive, and 51 pending receipt. As far as duty disability, we sent out 235 letters to our retirees who are on disability. 22 were validated. We are waiting 213 receipt of 213 certificates. As far as the retiree payroll, as of March 15 payroll, there were 8,712 retirees. We have paid out from October 1, 2019 through March 15, 2020, $117.1 million. The number of retirees we have added to the payroll during that period is 155, and the number of retirees we deleted from the payroll from October 1, 2019 through March 15, 2020 was 132 individuals. Note that in March 15 payroll, the gross amount was $10.7 million. As far as our loan portfolio, as of the end of February, we have 3,734 units still in force. Our mortgages, those were personal loans. Our mortgages, same period, we have 92 mortgages still in force. As of the same period, our total portfolio, which is unaudited at this time, is $44.7 million. The expiration dates on these loans, expiration dates on the personal loans, it runs through 2025. Our building in St. Croix is relatively okay. No major issues. We're going through routine maintenance being done. We do have 3 estimates. We want to enclose the trash dumpster. It looks very unsightly, you know, the way it is right now. So we're waiting. We have 3 estimates we'll receive and was sent to the acting chief operating officer for consideration. The St. Thomas complex, as you can see, if you drive by, is under major repairs. It's being painted right now. Part of it that has been repaired. We're about 90% complete on the exterior wall and the east elevation. I think they are now on the western side, so it's looking good. However, we do have a problem with our roof that needs to be fixed. It has displaced our retiree payroll section because of water still coming in. We don't want to do a temporary fix. It's better to do the fix right now. It's also have been disrupting operation in the legal office, so we want to do a little fix there, but we had to move the retiree payroll employees because some of those employees have health issues. There was a leak in the transformer that has to do with WAPA, and it appears that both have to be replaced, so we are working with WAPA to have that done. Our rents for February, we collected $177,281.77. Of that $177,000 for rental, we collected $104,278.67. For electric, we collected $73,002.40. Total year to date, we received rental of $375,507.95. For electric, we got reimbursed for $291,615.20. So total utilities collections was $667,123.15. As of April, the end of April, we have arrearages of $40,134.60 in rental and $29,085.42 in reimbursements for electrical expenses. That ends my report.
Mr. Nibbs?
Thank you, sir. Trustee Bory?
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
could I interject
Any
one
question for
question here?
you?
Dr. Callender?
Wait. Trustee Coyne, hold on a second.
Okay.
So Bory, you first.
I have a very short report. On March 12th, the Budget Committee met.
No.
Trustees present.
Hold on, Mr. Bory. Any questions for the administrator on his report?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay. Trustee Colwood?
Yes, I had a question on administrative report, and it's mainly directed towards Attorney Smith. I noticed in some of the legal actions, there was some defaults in personal loans and such. And my question is, if they do default and disappear and we can't identify any assets, are there benefits or there contributions? Can we recover any of that money?
It depends, Trustee Trustee Coyne. If the member is active, then we deduct it from their contributions that are in. If it is a retiree, it comes directly out of their annuity.
Okay, thank you.
There's no default per se.
Trustee Colwood still present?
Can't hear her. Muted.
Yes, I was trying to. I'm speaking. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can see you.
Yeah, but I was saying, I think Ms. Clendenin was trying to say something before I started to answer.
That's okay. Answer. I'll get to Ms. Clendenin. She's not going any place.
She might have added something.
She still has the time to add it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna pass for now.
Okay, Ms. Clendenin?
Trustees, I just wanted to mention, Mr. Nibbs mentioned arrears, that we did get $13,189.44 from the Division of Personnel for the February rent, $13,881.60 for the November electric bill. Casino Control Commission paid $21,001.50 for their quarterly rent, representing March, April, and May. And First Bank, for their ATM, paid their rent of $290.20. So the arrearage is much lower.
Okay, could you do that? What you can do is augment that report that you sent to me through Ms. Simon, and right next to the arrearages, put what came in March, so it'd be easier for the trustees to just insert what came in subsequent to the report.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dana Clendenin. I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
For Mr. Nibbs, you indicated in your report that 3.4 million was paid out to non-vested members. Could you tell me the period that was for again, and possibly the number of non-vested members?
No, I can't. I don't have that in front of me. I can get it and get back to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Nibbs, those life certificates, the dates have already expired on both sets. What are the plans now?
Plans is that you would hold their checks.
Okay,
We'll
so-
hold
so
their
that's
checks
being
until we be able to communicate with them that they're still alive.
Right. Okay. It's a large number of those that were due back on 320.
Is that the let's see.
Ability.
This is the one with
Well-
235 was sent out?
Yeah, well, what they have to do, what we're trying to establish from these disability retirees, they need to submit any source of income, a copy of their tax return. It would survive, and this is in keeping with the VI code.
Right.
So if they do not, then all we do is hold their check.
Okay. Understood. Anyone else with any question for the administrator? Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, we now move to committee reports.
Well, one last question.
Yes, sir.
One question first. And it's going back to the number of pending applications. Some of them go back a couple of years back. Is there any way we could speed up resolving those?
Well, when you see something like that, it's an employer, usually it's an employer share, especially with Juan Louis. I don't know. I can go back and check. We do have an analysis of who it is, and I can't put my hand on it right now. But when you see that happening, either the employee owes contributions or the employer refused to pay their contribution, especially Juan Louis. Going back like 2013 and 2014 or 15.
When you said they refused, that was an active position that they refused, or they just haven't done it?
Well, we are in
I mean,
discussions.
have they?
Well, there's a settlement agreement right now. They're paying current deductions. However, the last meeting that we had, they said they would rather buy injections and syringes than they don't have the money to pay the employer contributions because their focus is on buying supplies. That was their response to us.
And in Mr. Bowery, in one or two cases, we know it was personal.
Okay, but I'm just saying that response, the last meeting that we had, they claimed that their priority is the operation of the hospital and buying whatever the needs are, mainly paying accounts payables then. Instead, well, I would think that the employer contribution is part of an accounts payable.
We can discuss that in executive session. No, because it goes, I can give you some further insight, but it goes into detail of the agreement, so I can't discuss it in open session.
Well, I'm just saying what was
the only question I need answered, I'm trying to get answered, is have they acknowledged the liability and saying they can't afford it, or they're saying that they're not taking responsibility for it? I'm just trying to get a clarification.
They have acknowledged. I think what happened is the records, they needed to supply us with certain records, I think payroll records now with what we were trying to establish from them. Now, I know there was a meeting a few days ago, and I haven't gotten any report as yet because of the problem with the office, individuals being out of office. But I know that they had a meeting last week. But it was getting the data from them to establish the liability. We kind of estimate what it is, but we need to have the actual amount.
This is Denise Jeremiah, if I may.
Pardon me?
This is Jeremiah, if I may say something.
Sure. Yes, Ms. Jeremiah.
When we met with Wang Louis, most of the prior period payments have been met. However, it's the data for them to upload that's the problem. We can't post if they don't upload, and that's the major issue right now.
So the thing is, how did they how did they come up with the amount? They have to come up with the amount from a record. So how can they upload the data?
I guess it's recreating the files from all them years back. They were having problems doing it. But you remember they made a lump sum payment. So the lump sum payment covered those periods. However, the problem is uploading the files. And when we met last week, we realized that some of the payments that were sent in, when they sent the checks, what they did, they said, okay, we are going to pay for this person and we are going to pay for this person. But when the check dropped from their payroll, it was to pay for a pay period. So now they have to reconcile and try to figure out, okay, what it is we need to pay. And that's where they are right now with that problem. After we met last week, that's where they are. She went back. She's going to try and recreate whatever we gave her. She's going to try and recreate from that what happened so that they can reconcile and upload the files correctly.
Now I know that there was someone from Wang Louis came to our office in St. Croix this morning with a check. And obviously the office is closed. So we have to reach out to them to see how we can maybe get the check delivered to us. I know that, excuse me, you got the check?
Yes, Ms. Nico got the check and deposited in the bank.
Okay, thank you.
So it's not a matter of they're saying they are disavowing the liability. They're just whether it's documentation or availability of funds. They're just saying that they're not paying, but they acknowledge that is due to us. I mean, that's the distinction I was trying to make.
Yes, I think so. And you know, Trustee Bow, this goes back a long time. From 2010 with Mr. Nelson. And you know, I know when you were there, we worked together, so we understood. We were trying to get the payroll records, and we're getting something, but they have a liquidity, a cash issue. But we're working with them, and like I said, a check was delivered this morning.
Okay, so one last question on this. I know that the government does the legislation does an annual appropriation from what's the fund? What's the name of the fund?
The revolving health revolving fund?
No. The fund
internal revenue. Internal revenue.
The matching fund.
Matching fund. Okay.
The fund that comes from the rum tax.
Yeah.
There's an annual appropriation by the government, and it's intended to cover the employees, any missing employees portion, so that the employee could. That's based on lack of payment. So the purpose of that appropriation is that in the event that an employee retires and they're missing government payments, that it could be that the GIS will be paid out of that lump sum fund. The GIS has to document and send that request to the OMB to be paid from a particular fund.
Well, you see,
are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar. I may have known, but I just haven't been. It's not on my fingertips right now. But even for us to document, we would need the actual amount unless we estimate and send it to OMB. Right, Ms. Jeremiah?
Yeah, okay. I understand, but I'm just saying for those that they're saying they can't pay because they have to buy medicine instead. And it's tough to argue with that. But for those, those could be reimbursed from the particular fund.
Okay.
So check into it. When I was there, it was like $7 million a year, something like that. It was a hefty number.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, committee reports. Mr. Barry, you're on.
Yeah, the budget committee met on the 12th of March. Basically, we had one item on the agenda that was to complete our review of the 2020 budget. And we conducted trustee members present were Bowery, Callender, and Smith. We had a lengthy discussion, extensive review, and which was facilitated by a good bit of the senior staff, led by Mr. Nibs. And I think at the end of that, we had all our questions answered, and we were satisfied with the justifications. And I'm prepared to recommend to the board that the board adopt the budget that was submitted. And I'll be prepared to make the motion more specific later on when we get to that point on the agenda.
All right. Any other committee reports? I'm sorry, Trustee Caldwell, you were not at the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I think he left your name out. Okay.
How did I miss that? I'm sorry.
I know, I'm feeling hurt.
Is that why you're smiling there? Okay.
Sorry?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, I raised my hand, I was like, me?
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I smile all the time.
All right.
Yeah, I smile all the time.
That's my report.
Any additional committee reports?
Policy committee, we're going to have, now that we're mastering Zoom, I need to have a meeting short order. We have a couple things that we have to finalize our board manual, and in light of this new form of meeting, we're going to need to include electronic meeting or distance meeting, or create an electronic meeting policy, or include electronic meeting segment to our meetings. So we have to make that determination. So I'm going to ask for next week. I need to finish up this school situation for this week, and then I'll ask you guys to have a Zoom meeting next week when I have all the documents in front of you.
The Medical Review Committee had the meeting scheduled for the 23rd of March, and of course this was postponed.
Excuse me 1 minute. So next week the policy committee is having a meeting?
Yes. I'm gonna give you 2 dates, and you guys will choose which is best.
Okay, and send us whatever documents ahead of time, please.
Yes, you already have the original policy. I'm gonna send you the addendum, and you make a determination if you want to have it as a standalone policy or incorporate into our meeting segment of our manual.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Treasurer's report.
Good afternoon, Board Chair and other trustees. This is the Government Employees Retirement System Schedule of Receipts and Disbursements for the month ended February 29, 2020. Receipts from collections, loan repayment, 1,616,443. Year to date, 8,617,806. Rent from tenants / utilities, 97,334. Year to date, 531,629. Rents from Havenside tenants, 475,145. Year to date, 2,628,298. Employer retirement contributions, 7,799,221. Year to date, 36,872,367. Employee retirement contributions, 3,995,573. Year to date, 20,334,307. Parking facility, 670. Year to date, 5,330. Miscellaneous, 105,265. Year to date, 2,536,538, for total collections of 14,389,652. Year to date, 71,526,274. Disbursement, annuity payments, 21,934,598. Year to date, 110,146,039. Administrative expenses, 1,722,957. Year to date, 6,578,974. Personal loans, 11,507. Year to date, 146,506. Mortgage loans, 16,414. Year to date, 108,011. Retiree loans, 5,006. Year to date, 19,246. There is nothing for auto loans and land loans for the month of February. Year to date, auto loans $12. Land loans, nothing for the year. Refunds of contribution, 1,084,869. Year to date, 4,731,941. Allotments to WICO/ management fees, 729,641. Year to date, 874,960. Total disbursements, 25,504,992. I'm sorry. Year to date, 122,605,688, for a net cash deficit of 11,115,340. Year to date, 51,079,414. That's end the reading of the Treasurer's report.
Thank you, ma'am.
So how is that $51 million negative being made up?
By withdrawals from our investment.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's the only question?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Caldwell?
No questions here.
Trustee Cohen?
What I was looking at is the rent from Haven site, in comparison for last year and this year, but I know for a fact for March and April it's definitely gonna go down. Mr. Nibs, well, that's actually, you know what? No, that question is for our other meeting. Never mind.
Huh?
No, the question I was going to ask, I need to save it for the other meeting, the transition group. So never mind.
Okay, so no questions? Trustee Cohen?
No questions at this time.
Okay, I have no question. I need a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
I'll so move. Trustee Cohen, so move to accept the treasurer's report as is.
Second.
Trustee
I'll
Caldwell.
move to,
Yes.
Trustee Bari.
Yes.
Trustee Cohen. Trustee Cohen.
yes. Yes.
Trustee Liger, absent. Trustee McDonald, absent. Trustee Smith, absent. Chairman Callanan.
Yes.
4 yes, 3 absent.
Thank you. The treasurer's report has been accepted. The investment officer's report.
I don't know if is he there?
Mr. Henderson around?
He was.
He was up there.
Hold on, please.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was downstairs.
He should come upstairs.
He said he was having internet problems.
Is he present?
Should be.
Okay.
He's look like he stepped away from his computer because he was there before.
Can we jump to the item about the generator, to approve the generator?
He's not answering.
He
his
said he
phone.
was having
He was-
internet problems.
Yeah, but he could have come upstairs if he was.
I don't know if he's downstairs. I don't know if he's down. He might be home. Yeah, I don't know.
I should not be doing this. Okay, Mr. Henderson isn't here. We actually, a lot was presented from this report that when Mikita was here. Do you still want me to read it in? Because just about everything he said came from this report.
I think you have to. For the transcriber, don't you need to?
I will. On the second page, the total plan performance. The total plan return 0% for the month. Total equity return negative 8.1 for the month. Is that 8.1? It should be 1.8. Let's see. 8.1, negative 8.1 for the month, and outperformed the benchmark by 10 basis points. The total fixed income returned 1.5% and underperformed its benchmark by 30 basis points. And total alternatives returned negative 0.1% and outperformed its benchmark by 790 basis points. At the end of the February 28th, the monthly cash flow update, we ended the month at approximately $582 million. No funds were raised in the month of February. The system planned to raise $22 million in the month of March, $13 million from liquidation of Russell 1000 growth, and $9 million from liquidation of Russell 1000 value funds. The beginning of the month, the total plan was $582,178,581. Net cash flow was zero because we did not raise any monies in that month. Our income was $295,166. We had a loss of $433,084. Therefore, the ending market value of $582,040,663 for the end of the month. Our notable fund performance: Russell 1000 value returned negative 9.7%. The Russell 1000 index returned negative 8.2%. Pew Capital returned 2% and outperformed its benchmark by 17 basis points. US debt index returned 1.8%. That's basically it.
All right, thanks, Mr. Names. Aside with the performance, would have been great if he had some more money in the fund, but okay, we now go to regular session. Item number 1, approval of funds for generator. Sunil?
Trustees, after the hurricane of 2017, the system became very vulnerable because our main generator here at the GRS went down because I think they'd gotten water in the system, and we couldn't operate. It's a good thing that we were able to get the payroll out through some type of a relationship with the banks to get the direct deposits out. So we know that we formed a disaster recovery committee, and one of the recommendations is that we have a backup generator. Now, there was a generator that the First Bank had owned, which is on the south side of the building. We thought we probably could have used that generator, however, we couldn't use it. Also, I think we couldn't get it permitted by DPNR. I'll let you complete. So what we did is we went out, and I let legal, because there was some legal back and forth with the agencies. So we went out and we got quotes for a generator that will take the load of entirely the payroll section and accounting, and also the IT, because these are the sections of the system and the backbone support to move the entire operation. So I will let the attorneys get involved because they were more involved with this than I was. So Kathy Smith, you can.
Yeah, we looked at using the First Bank generator, but there were several issues with it. It would have to be, because there was a change in ownership, it would have to be permitted. We could not find any of the information. We couldn't find the old permit, which if we could, it would have sped things up. Also, the cost to retrofit the generator so that it would meet the admission standards was going to be expensive. So we decided to scrap that and then look for a new generator, because one of the issues with V3 was that when V3 went down, because the generator went down, everybody knows it caused a lot of issues, and it took months before V3 could come back up. And so it was Mr. Thomas who really spearheaded this to want to have a backup generator for IT. And then in discussions with Mr. Nibbs, we decided to also add payroll onto it so that we could make sure that we could always get out the retiree and the administrative payroll. So we did, originally we had it listed as 150 kW, 155 kW generator, but we had the company come out and do a load balance, and they determined that we'd only need a 50 kW, that could support those sections. And so what Mr. Nibbs has presented is a new quote for Kubota 50 kW at $29,895. And that includes delivery by crane, trucking it to the GRS site. It doesn't include the electrical installation, though. That would be a separate amount.
I have, is it okay for questions?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I have a couple of questions. What's this D3 you mentioned? What is it deep you're saying? Or?
V3 is our software system that holds all of our member records. That's what we use to retire people. It has our loan system on it. And so it held up trying to be able to retire people. It held up being able to add people to the payroll because we couldn't get into V3. We had to work with the software provider to bring it back up.
It's the equivalent of the ERP in the central government. It's the equivalent of the ERP.
Okay. Got you. And as I understand, and this is in St. Thomas or St. Louis?
This is St. Thomas.
This is St. Thomas.
Yes.
As I understand it, you're purchasing a backup generator to cover a partial load requirement?
Yes. And that was the recommendation, to just have the backup for those two sections.
That was a recommendation based on what? I mean,
that was Mr. Thomas. He wanted to have it separated. He had some reasons. I don't remember now what the reasons were that he wanted to separate it. But we
Well,
had
the thing is that if Whopper goes out and the main generator doesn't turn over, at least we know that we can function with that backup generator.
I understand the need for the backup. That's no question there for me. My question has to do with why we want to buy. How much more would it cost for a backup to take the full loan as opposed to the partial loan?
That was one of the considerations. I don't know, but Mr. Thomas had technical reasons why he wanted to separate it, and it's unfortunate that he's not here to explain. Because that was originally what we looked at, because Mr. Burrows wanted a backup generator that could run the entire office, but there was technical reasons why Mr. Thomas wanted it separated. Can you get him?
I like to hear those.
Okay.
I'm not technical here.
We're gonna try to reach him.
But Kathy, the quote.
But I mean, do you have any sense for what it would cost, though? I mean,
I don't know what size we would need to run the entire.
But if you look at the quote, yeah. 155,000.
Hello, Terry. Sorry to call you. There's a question on the board meeting in regards
for $50,000. Would that not be sufficient to run the entire system?
No, that was the quote I think when it was originally thought that it would run. But then we did a load survey, and so that load survey showed that request was too high. But I don't know. I don't know what the generator is.
Well, there's two reasons. One.
Can he call him?
Can he call him?
Can he call him?
The main generator.
Is there any way you can come into the?
No, call him. Call him.
Oh, call me at 693-3922.
693-3922.
That's correct.
39. Okay.
Right. Okay. Hello, Terry. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Mr. Nips. Good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, what I ask is that you maybe explain the reason why you would prefer the generator be separate for the IT and the payroll.
Okay, two reasons. One, the current generator that's there is at near capacity. That generator went in I think 1997 after Hurricane Marilyn. Number two, having a separate generator would allow us to continue IT and payroll operations independent of the first generator in the event it failed. One of the reasons we had some issues after Irma and Maria was when they had to take the main generator offline for fuel and servicing issues. It required us to shut down the network, and that impacted our pension operations.
Okay, Mr. Thomas, one of the questions Mr. Bowery had was why couldn't we just get a backup generator that would run the entire operations? And as I recall, you had some reason why you didn't think that was the best option, and I just couldn't recall.
Well, Kathy, if he's saying get a premise-wide generator, that's going to require a lot more work to be done. Because you would have to find some place to put that generator. That's number one. Number two, having a separate generator gives us an additional layer of protection in case the main generator goes offline. You know, I think that generator, the main generator, if my memory serves me correctly, is like a 900 kW. I think in speaking to Burroughs and the electrician, if they were to replace it, would need at least a 1.5 megawatt unit, you know. So having a second generator basically gives us an extra layer of protection.
This is Mr. Bowery. I was not questioning the need for a separate generator. I was questioning why we decided to go with a separate generator that only covers half or limited portion of our load. If we're going to get involved in adding a separate generator, particularly when you're saying that the current one is approaching its load capacity, why not go for a separate generator?
Considerations that was taken in, one of the things taken into consideration was the location of the generator that's being replaced. If you were to see where the existing generator is, which is a smaller unit, that was one of the considerations given. Is basically the original plan was to retrofit an existing generator. And so once it was determined that retrofitting a generator would be too much of a headache, there was looking at something that would fit in that same space versus having to build out a bigger space.
Well, I mean, aren't you going to be facing that soon, according to you? You're saying we're running up against its max capacity. So aren't you going to be faced with that soon?
Could you repeat?
I said, you mentioned earlier that the current generator is hitting up against its maximum capacity. So aren't you going to be faced with replacing it soon? I mean, why not use the opportunity to?
That's a question, Mr. Bowery, I could not answer because that would fall under facilities. I don't know what their long-term plan is for that particular generator.
The generator operates very well. It's just that during the storm, there was water that went into the generator. We test that generator every Monday. It operates well. It never did that before. A lot of water went in, so what we need to do is make sure that the water doesn't get in there the next time somehow.
Okay, so I mean that to me is a mixed message there. So are you saying we don't need a backup?
I don't think we need that. We don't need the present. What we're trying to do presently, just for the 2 units, I think would suffice in the event that main generator have any problems before. But we haven't really been having problem. It is maintained. Routine maintenance is done periodically, and I've been here 13 years, and we never had no problem like that, other than with the hurricane.
But it seemed to me one of the concern I'm hearing is, if I thought I understood Terry to say that one issue may be either size or a space to put a bigger generator. But I think Mr. Boy's concern is, if it's going to cost us another $5,000 or $10,000 to get a generator, a bigger one that could carry the entire system, it may be cost effective to do that rather than spend $30,000 on a generator that's only going to be able to run a portion or limited portion of the system.
You're going to need at least 900. You're going to need at least 900 kilowatts, 1.5.
No, 1.5.
5 million. That's about $600,000 or $700,000, or more than that.
Well, I guess
plus space is an issue. Where would you put that generator? You're going to have to take up parking space.
I think all I'm saying is that one needs to then show them what the numbers are so they can make that decision. Because right now they don't have that in front of them.
I have a question for Mr. Thomas. So Thomas, regardless of this new, whether we get a new generator or not, regardless of the size, you still want to have a separate generator for your IT area, right?
We want to have the ability to provide the services necessary to the system in the event you have a major disaster, and having a second generator gives us that level of assurance.
Right. So it doesn't matter whether they get a new generator or not. You still want to have that generator for you, for the area that you need.
That's correct.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I mean, does that make it any clearer, trustees? He still needs to have that separate generator for that area.
But does it have to be a separate generator just for IT, or does it matter that it's a second generator that could run the entire system?
That's going to take longer to
That's my question. I've never questioned the need for a separate generator. That's not my question at all. I'm questioning whether if we're going to invest in a second generator, whether it would be more cost effective to invest in a second generator that carries the entire system, as opposed to invest in a separate generator that only carries IT and whatever else.
I think one of the considerations.
IT is a critical component of what we do, but that's not all we do.
Well, one of the issues also was this: where to put this second generator. It's a big generator. We'll have to take up parking spaces. Plus, the new air conditioning system will be taken from the roof and it'll be put on the ground. So you're going to take up a lot of parking spaces. Plus, you have an investment of probably close to $1 million instead of $29,000.
Okay.
Because I think I asked the same question to Mr. Barrows. Why don't we get?
Yeah, that's what you wanted originally.
That's what I wanted originally.
So where do we go from here?
Excuse me, I'd like to interject for 1 minute. The Trustee Cohen, the idea for that amount of money to get this second backup generator for the new IT, because all that equipment was just purchased, and protect the ability to send out payroll on our own, I think is a high priority. And for that price tag, to have that separate generator, we need to do that. Now, to go and spend $600,000, $700,000 for a new generator altogether, let's deal with that when the time comes, if this present generator is still in good shape.
My only concern is that this is not in the budget. 29,000 out. You may want to either increase the budget, or the administrator has up to $30,000 per transaction outside of the budget to expend.
You have an almost $4 million budget estimate for 2020 for capital expenditure. You can't find 29,000 in there?
Well, we can try. I'm just letting you know we can try. I just brought it up that in the event.
Yeah, I mean, you need to look at the $4 million and see and find $30,000 out of that.
Fine. Okay.
Well, it's going to be a little more than 30 because we got to do the electrical installation.
Yeah.
Well, tell me now, how much is it?
We don't have a quote for that yet.
I have an estimate on the electrical.
Yeah, we don't have that yet.
Come.
If I think if a somewhat we can do, what I would recommend is that
just now,
when we come to that point, we would submit a supplemental to the board for consideration. If it's not within the $30,000 limit that the authority that I have. But I understand Mr. Barry's position. We will see. These are estimates. So
coming out of CapEx, you mean?
Yeah, they're estimates because things can happen.
I mean, we already halfway through the year and you don't have your budget yet, so.
All right. But they can be encumbered.
Yeah, there's
or accrued.
There's some urgency because we need to get this unit ordered so that we can get it permitted. So by the time it arrives on island, it'll be already permitted and it can be installed before hurricane season, and that's what the push is.
Have to encumber the accrued monies so they don't.
Find it in your budget. The 3.8 or 4?
Well, you know, the board would have to give us authority, and I came to the board many times to give me the authority as long as I'm not in a deficit position at the bottom line to give me the authority to move monies around, to reprogram money.
Well, I mean, that would be inherent in this approval. I mean, if we approve this today, that'll be, and we tell you find it there, then that's an inherent approval.
Okay. So we're seeking approval of the 50K. Oh, we're seeking. We got to get approval from them.
Yeah, the 50K.
For 29,895, and according to the budget committee chair, that we try to find monies within the current budget to
CapEx.
payments, capex.
Is a motion needed to approve Mr. Nibbs' utilization of pursuing this?
Yes.
Maybe we don't, based on Mr.
No,
Barry.
it's just under 30.
Maybe since
But if it's
Mr.
under
Barry,
30,000,
Mr. Barry, the budget chair, has said that I should find the monies within the current budget to do it. Or also another option is it's within my authority for any one single item. The board has given me that authority up to 30,000 to expend. So then we don't need the approval. Right?
But
No,
first
but-
priority
but-
is
but I
CapEx.
understand that we're not increasing the budget any
Correct.
place.
Right. We understand that.
Okay. And
So then if it's
so
50,
I also
if it's 100, suppose it comes up to 50,000, 60,000 with the electrical. My limit is 30 with the equipment. I'll have to find money someplace else within that budget.
you're better off just. Yeah, you need to find it within the budget. That's all I'm saying. You got
Well,
$4
that's
million,
why-
$3.8 million.
Within the capex or within
So
the budget within the budget outside of personnel and fringes.
Yeah, with the capital budget, within the capital budget, you have the budget we're going to approve today is 4.6 million, almost $5 million for capital expenditure, and these are all based on estimates. So you find 55,000 million there, and if you approve the purchase, that's the authority you need.
Well, Ms. Clendenin, isn't there a change order coming up with the Senkoi building shortly? How much is that?
The St. Thomas building.
Yes, the St. Thomas building. Isn't there a change order there that is not in the budget?
Yes.
We haven't gotten
just got
them
it
out
yesterday or day before. It's almost 300,000.
Okay. See what we up against, Mr. Barry?
That's fine. When that time comes, you deal with it. I mean,
Okay.
Okay, let's go on the list. So we don't have any change orders going in the opposite direction.
Boy, you're a tough one, man. I haven't seen any yet.
You never have a change order going in the opposite direction. Never.
That's
from
what you
contractor.
I see what you have to
not
put
unless
you
you're
into home and be director. I can't promise you that, sir. We're gonna look at it, sir. We look at it.
Right now, the approval you get, as I understand it, is that we're going to approve your purchase. I don't know. You still haven't given us even an estimated number for the installation. which could run as much as the purchase of the equipment itself.
Good, about 20,000.
Okay, so we're looking at $60,000.
That's something like that, yeah.
And the authorization you get in is to go ahead and obligate that within the capital improvement budget, and it's going to stay within the 6-point-something budget, $4.7 million that hopefully we'll approve today.
And what about the change order coming up? And we still haven't done the...
I don't know.
Okay. We can come back to the board for some type of something.
Well, yeah, I mean, it may be that some of the things you have in here need to come out.
Yeah, well, what we can do,
postpone.
Yeah, we can.
Postpone.
Well, I'm not sure if we can postpone until next year budget. But what we can do is do a analysis of what is
next year's budget. Next year's budget is 6 months away, you know.
Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah.
And four of those 6 months you can't do anything because Corona is going to have to quarantine.
Correct.
Right?
But at least we should encumber the amount or accrue the amount.
Encumber it out of the current budget. You can't encumber it. When you're ready to encumber is when you have a firm number.
We do have contracts. That's what I'm saying. That's when we encumber when we have contracts. So we do have some firm numbers with contracts and agreements.
Okay, so how much you have? How much you have encumbered?
Okay. Right off the top, I can't tell you. The CEO or the CFO can. But I understand your point. What we'll do is we'll go ahead. You'll approve the budget. We'll try to find the monies within the budget, and we can probably do budget actuals maybe up through June. See if we can find some monies in there, and if we're not, we'll have to come back to the board.
There you go.
Okay.
And then we probably could offset some of that from the operating budget at some point.
Yeah, well, okay, fine. I don't have any problem, but the board have to give me the authority because I came to the board before and they didn't give me the authority to reprogram where I think that I'm not going to use whatever was approved. So if you give me that authority, I can do that. Okay? All right.
The authority I'm willing to support right now is that it comes out of the capital budget for 2020.
Okay, fine. We'll do an analysis, and by June, and we'll be able to determine with budget and actuals and to go and completion, percentage of completion, and see what we can do. Okay.
Okay. There you go.
All right. Good. No problem.
But you still need the motion to approve the expenditure out of the capital 2020 budget.
I'll just copy you. Get the motion.
Yeah. I'm prepared to make the motion if I have a number.
29. It's the 50K generator in the amount of $29,895.
Mr. Nibbs, the quote we have is a 40K.
I think he sent some this morning for the 50K.
This morning, there's a new quote we have for the 50K. It was sent out this morning. It's $29,895.
Okay. Mr. Nibbs, between you and Kathy, frame the approval that you need. Give me the words to and I'll make the motion. What do you
Motion
want?
to approve the purchase of a 50K generator for the purpose of providing load for the accounting, payroll, and IT sections of the GRS. In the event of a catastrophe, in the amount of $29,895.
I so move.
Okay.
I second it, Kevin.
The caveat that it's within your existing budget number.
Is
So
that
we should
part of the
add
motion?
money to be expended from the 2020 capital budget.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Second.
Okay, I still second it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, need a roll call.
Second is Carwood. Cohen.
Yeah, point.
Trustee Carwood.
Yes.
Trustee Barry.
Yes.
Trustee Cohen.
Yes.
Trustee Liger absent. Trustee McDonald absent. Trustee Smith absent. Chairman Callanan.
Yes.
4 yes, 3 absent.
Just one last question I have. If you could answer, Mr. Nibs. In the capital projects support that you sent to support your budget, there's a long list of capital items. Mm-hmm. Which of these haven't started? And could possibly be postponed to the next fiscal year?
Ms. Clendenin, you have to help me because you work closely with that.
No problem.
With the contractor.
The exterior and the AC and the northern roof all have been started, and the fence at Nollyburg. That's it.
Okay, so which one?
Everything else has not started yet.
Okay, sorry. So tell, go down the list and tell me which one have not started. The list I have starts with
tiling, tinting, lobby, security cameras, transformer, lighting have not started yet. Although we have all quotes in hand, we just needed a budget to start, but they have not started yet.
Okay, so that's 120. That's what, $200,000 right there.
It could, Trustee Barry, could you leave it to us to determine where we're going to get those monies from?
Yeah, because
give us the chance to do that. Because we got to determine priority. Transformer is very important to us. I need to sit with the staff to come up with where we can forego or postpone.
That's what I wanted to hear you say, Mr. Nibs. I'm fine.
Yes, I'm going to do that.
Go ahead. I agree.
We'll do that and send you a report, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Are we okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's doing an update on GERS coronavirus protocol?
I'll let Ms. Clendenin do that. She's in charge of that.
I'm sorry, I was typing. Could you repeat?
I want you to give an update on our protocol within GRS as far as the COVID-19.
Okay.
What we have done what we have done, and now we're under the executive order.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. Prior to the executive order and prior to all that's going on in the community, the GRS had contacted our suppliers to procure for the staff some supplies, so Clorox wipes and Lysol sprays and hand sanitizers for their own safety. We've also increased the number of times the maintenance and custodial staff do the disinfecting and sanitizing of high frequently touched areas. Prior to the executive order, we had meetings with all the management staff and devised a remote work at home plan for 2 days a week, and the remaining days would be in the office, with Friday being closed. So the staff had to work through who would work how and when and equipment. However, because of the executive stay home order, we have suspended the staff coming into the building 2 days a week, and those that can work remotely would do so. We had set up in our lobbies drop boxes, which we will continue as we had suspended the in-person services as to protect the staff and our members. We would continue that even if we reopen just for a while, that they can drop off all documents. We created a customer care at usbigers.com. That persons can contact us with any questions, and that's how we know about the check for Wang Louis today, because we have several people on that email for all of us to field what's going on to continue the business of GERS. So that's where we are. The return to work date is supposed to be Monday, April 6th. We will see if that holds true, or if we are suspended till after Easter, or we'll listen out for the governor. Mr. Nibs will make a determination how does that, if at all, affect the GERS.
That's it, ma'am?
Yes.
Trustees, any questions, any comments? Spendeni, we don't have any employee member, family member who's gotten ill, do we?
We don't have any employees well, family members not here. My sister's not here, but she had it. She's in Seattle, but not locally that we know of.
Okay.
And again, the payroll continued. Ms. Jeremiah and her team, I know she's still on the line, worked to get out the payroll. So they got their payments a little early, working through that with the banks. If anything else happens, we were able to get lots of people on for the 15th payroll. That will be at the standstill until we return to do the rest of the cases for the 30th payroll.
By payroll, you're talking about the annuity payments?
That's correct, trustee.
Okay,
There's admin payroll, which will go. Admin payroll is regular, and then the annuitants.
So just clarify what you said. You got some done and not the rest?
No, through member services. We were slated to put almost 25 persons on the April 15th payroll. We got almost 15 on, so the others will be slated for the next available payroll.
Oh, okay. These are the additional ones.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
This is Jeremiah. Payroll managed to get 22 additional for the April 15th payroll, so we did add 22 to the April 15th. And that is just awaiting the upload to the bank, but it was processed, so we just have the final part to do when that time comes.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
Welcome.
Okay, are we having a presentation by the Haven Mall Merchants Association?
Well, I gave them the link. I'm not sure anyone is on there, so I'll just go ahead and just speak to the board in regards to what occurred in the meeting. I sent an email to the board and for board consideration. As a matter of fact, I just received another letter this morning. So if Ram is not on the line, Ram Bapuri, are you there? If not, we'll move forward. Mr. Chairman, on March 18th, the Oversight Committee met via Zoom, as we're doing now with the Havenside Mall tenants. It was a diverse group, not only the merchants whose businesses catered to the cruise line passengers. So it was a very good mixture. There were many issues discussed. Malfunctioning of the generator. This is something the Oversight Committee has to look at again, because yesterday we had a meeting with the WICO and we have some issues with that generator as to ownership and all of that stuff. So that is on the table. But the generator malfunctions, meaning that it will work for like maybe a half an hour, then it shuts down. Needs repairing. They wanted to have more speed bumps needed in the mall. Some stores have closed for 2 weeks, and from what I understand yesterday, WICO had asked all of the restaurants to close down by 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
That's the business offices. The restaurants have already closed.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Deli Deck was not closed. He told them to close by 6 p.m. yesterday. Okay?
All the
GRS should close down the mall. Tenants were saying we should just close the entire mall down. And at that time, at that meeting, the only non-essential retail is closed, except the post office and the restaurant for takeout. As far as I know, yesterday in the meeting with WICO, this says that the mall will close. They will have the restaurants in the mall closed down. That's by 6 p.m. March 25th, based on Mr. Rocky. I think Deli Deck was there because I saw them doing takeouts.
Mm-hmm.
I was over there that day. However, the main discussion centered around rent abatement and or rent reduction. I don't want to talk about any rent reduction, but this is what their recommendation was. Tenant's recommendation, and I'll read some letters into the record. Rent abatement for the months of March and April. From what I know, some of the March rents probably have already been paid. We need to confirm because of the staggered dates for the receipt of rent payments. Also, they're looking for rent abatement during the off-season, May through October, because no one knows what will happen after the closure dates. The 30 days, I think that's 30 days they're talking about. Would the ship still come at capacity? It's one of the questions. Would people be willing to travel like they used to? Before I gave my recommendation, I would like to read into the record some correspondence that I received. 3 pieces of 3 letters that I received. There was another one received, I can't find it, that came from Little Switzerland. But I'll read the letter into the record for Tap and Sill. Date March 25th, 2020, from Maria Austin and Oman Pedram.
Little Switzerland.
Okay, thank you. It's COVID-19 impact and relief request for relief. In recent weeks, our global economy has been shaken with COVID-19 pandemic. Tap and Still Havenside attempted to adjust in various ways while keeping the safety of our employees and customers in mind. In the past 2 weeks, Tap and Still saw unprecedented declines in restaurant traffic due to lack of cruise ships, overnight guests, and local businesses. Even after the hurricane, we hadn't seen such a decline. We continue to try and provide basic takeout service for the past week with no success. And as of yesterday, Tap and Still was forced to close its doors island-wide for the first time since its inception. By this letter, Tap and Still respectfully request that WICO, which is now GRS because WICO sent it to us, immediately suspend the rent. We recommend this measure continue until the travel industry rebounds and for this pandemic and ships and overnight guests start calling again. Immediate implementation of these measures is critical to offset the lack of revenues, or we don't foresee being able to continue operations in the future. Still values its partnership with Waiko GRS and believe that together with these rent allowances, we can preserve the restaurant service at your port and be ready to emerge stronger than ever when the customers return. Managing Partner Mario Austin. Another letter from Bulchan's, Ashok Chugani, dated March 20 in an email. Good morning, Mr. Nibbs. We thank you for the online meeting with Havenside Mall's tenants the other day and for clearing up most of our doubts and reassuring us that the mall will run the same way, if not more enhanced improvement after Waiko's departure. There was something that's said about moving the tenants from Warehouse 4 and 4A to Warehouse J. Please confirm, as the song was going off and on. We currently are in Warehouse 4A and look forward to moving our warehouse operations from there to Warehouse J when it is ready. Looking forward to hearing from you on the rent abatement from the GRS board and you for April and May. Thank you and have a great weekend. Regards, Ashok Shugani, Bulchans. Letter from Port of Sale that I received this morning from Joel Tranum. It says, good morning, Mr. Nibbs. This is the email. I'll read the letter after. The world has turned in vast and unexpected ways since we parted ways in the departure lunch a month ago. And little for the better, alas. I can only hope that you and your family are well and safe in Florida. At that time, I was going to Florida. Here at Port of Sale, we are trying in every way to stay ahead of events and give your tenants hope and heart in the face of rapidly unfolding events. To that end, and with great respect and reluctance, I forward the attached request for rapid near-term consideration, so in hope that we can immediately pass relief along to our tenants in the name of GRS and without delay. Your prompt attention to this will be deeply appreciated by our tenants and by everyone in our community. Respectfully yours, Joel Tranum, Canaan Developments. He also penned a letter. It's addressed to Austin Nibbs, Administrator, CEO, Employee Retirement System, Government Employees Retirement System, GRS Complex in Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, 00802. It's dated March 26, 2020. Dear Mr. Nibbs, I hope this finds you and yours safe and healthy as we live through these extraordinary and trying times both locally and worldwide. As you know, Port of Sale has been one of your most reliable and responsive tenants since we signed our lease in March of 1995, almost exactly 25 years ago. We have weathered major hurricanes and the financial crisis of 2008 without complaint and without having ever asked for or received any relief, forgiveness, or reduction in our obligations to you. But now in this worldwide crisis and with the government ordered shutdown of effectively our entire economy, we will find ourselves in a position where we realize we must seek your assistance if our tenants are to survive and strive again when the current crisis passes. As you can imagine, and no doubt hear differently from your tenants on the dock, with no ships and bars and restaurants closed, and all non-essential activities ordered shut, many of our tenants are on their knees and begging for relief. With that in mind, and with the prospect for a speedy recovery very uncertain, I would most respectfully seek the assistance of GRS with respect to our ground rent. Specifically, we would request a forgiveness of rent, preferably for the next 4 months, but at a minimum for the next 3 months. For our part, Port of Sale will pass that relief along directly and fully to our tenants, making absolutely clear that this relief is due to the community-minded leadership of you and of the GRS. We feel we must do whatever we can to assist in bringing relief to our tenants, especially to our small and most endangered tenants, if you are to survive and recover. Additionally, inasmuch as we trust that our ongoing negotiations aim at your goal of purchasing the Port of Sale leasehold and folding our business into your control of Havenside Mall and the other properties, you own on the cruise dock, ship dock will continue. We would like to make this additional commitment. If we are able to conclude these negotiations and close on our sale on your purchase of the lease in a reasonable period of time, say by the end of the third quarter of this year, we would apply the amount of the rent we are requesting be forgiven in this letter as a credit against such final price as we hope will be negotiated between Port of Sale and the GRS in the near future. We respectfully ask that you grant this two-pronged and proactive approach to saving our tenant base. Our ability to make known the assistance that your rent forgiveness would provide our tenants at the earliest possible moment may well prove critical to your decisions with respect to our immediate futures, and certainly will go a long way towards building their confidence in the strong recovery and bright future that I know you and I share as our wish for the Virgin Islands. With all best regards, respectfully yours, Joel Tranum, President. Another letter came from Little Switzerland. It's an email, Wednesday, March 25th, 2020, from Tom Ballas, and subject message on COVID-19. Dear Mr. Nibs and Ms. Cathy Smith, I wish the best to you and your families and fellow employees during these uncertain times. As a Caribbean-based company, we have navigated disasters in the past, but this one is uncharted waters. Unlike a hurricane, there was no planning for this event. You have all been gracious in the aftermath of those past disasters, and I'm counting on you to do so now. We have been great partners to each other and hope this is the case for many years to come. Our first obligation is to the safety and well-being of our employees and customers. We began advising on increased cleaning and personal hygiene procedures a couple weeks ago based on recommendation by the CDC and WHO. We are developing plans for remote work and began the temporary closing of stores yesterday, which we believe is inevitable from a public safety perspective and possibly a government mandate. Although all businesses are dealing with many issues right now, our situation is unique in that the great majority of our customers must travel to our destinations. For the unforeseeable future, this simply will not be possible. Cruise lines have ceased voyages originated in the United States for at least 30 days, and flight schedules are changing rapidly. Some of our markets, such as Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin, have restricted inbound travel from US and many other countries. In the very near future, our revenue will approach zero. We must anticipate that once things begin to normalize in the US, our recovery will be many months behind, as we will not only need the cruise schedules and flight schedules to normalize, but will need people to travel again. Based on our anticipated slow recovery in quotes, we have suspended the placement of new orders and the shipment of existing orders. We have canceled all upcoming events and will cease to plan any new events at this time. Almost all other marketing initiatives will be canceled or put on hold indefinitely. What we need from you now is the following: a suspension of rent payments until May 1, 2020, to give more visibility into the global situation. Agree no late fees or interest payment on suspended payments. Consider a cessation of rent until we are able to reopen our stores and return to some normalcy in our business. The action we take now will give us a better chance to secure our long-term relationship with you. Tom Ballas, VP of Operation, will be contacting you in the next 1 or 2 weeks to discuss the options. Please be patient, as we are truly overwhelmed with the amount of issues we must deal with. Personally, I am focusing my time on our employees, as we will be forced to lay off a great number of them. The immediate actions we take now give us the best chance to recover in a certain future. Truly, we are all in this together. Stay healthy, keep safe, and thanks for your support. Regards, Tom. That's from Little Switzerland.
All right, trustees, any comments?
I'd like to make some comments, but I think it'd be more appropriate in an executive session.
Right.
Do you know, Mr. Nibs, if any of those have business interruption insurance?
Brought this in the meeting to them. I asked the question in our meeting on the 18th that if they have any business interruption insurance, and they said they have business interruption insurance, but not loss of income.
Also, Mr. Bowery, I've been doing some research, and a lot of business interruption policies don't pay for this type of pandemic. They have exclusions for that. And I know we just renewed our policy, and one of them has an exclusion for this type of incident.
But I think, isn't there something in the making now in the government, locally and nationally, for business owners who are being impacted with corona-related closures or temporary closures? They're providing, or they're working towards provide some kind of financial relief?
A bill did pass yesterday. I haven't had a chance to pull it. It passed late last night. I saw some of the things on the news this morning, but they are making some provisions for the employees to be able to get cash if they make less than $75,000. Also, there's some provisions for them to be able to get unemployment benefits. There's provisions for business for low-cost loans, which can be forgiven if the businesses keep their employees on the payroll. So when I get out of here, I'm gonna try to pull up the bill and see, because it's one of the things I wanted to mention. You know, we need to make sure that we don't give them rent forgiveness and then they can take advantage of these programs and to our detriment.
This would have to be one of the provision, and they would have to show what they received. How we would know what they received.
That was one of our concerns post Maria, that they were seeking assistance from us while they were collecting from everyone else.
Well, I would assume any assistance would have to come through the SBA or SBDA.
It would be SBA. I know they're making through SBA, but some of it I read somewhere, and I heard that some of it's going to come directly through the banks. So I don't really know. I haven't had a chance to pull the bill because it just passed last night, and I don't know. They're still trying to type up everything. So we need to really see what's in the bill that they can apply for.
I don't know if there's any confidentiality issue. Maybe if we're going to if the board make a decision to give any relief, that we contact these institutions and see if they can tell us. And arrange, but I don't know if it's as a
confidentiality. They're not going to tell us. I mean, it probably will take about 30 days for these things to get up and geared. So you might want to look at maybe giving them a 30-day suspension.
And we have to discuss.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that would be, but you know, I would refer them to those programs. Is what I would do, is say, you know, this is what's available out here. You need to seek out this assistance, because GRS still has to pay security. You're still going to have some upkeep, and you still have expenses even though the mall is shut down. And so it's something that you have to consider.
But relative to the confidentiality, Kathy, again, assuming GRS wants to do all that work and go to these agencies as part and condition of any rent abatement consideration, they'll have to provide a waiver so that we can in fact get that information from the federal entity or even the banks.
Well, that's a lot of work, Pedro. So what I would prefer is to tell them that you go seek it out and then you show us where you got turned down for it. You know, because they would have a letter saying that they weren't approved for it, and that way we don't have to do a lot of the work.
Well, again, they could show that they've been turned down and then they go to somebody else and get approved. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is, I mean, there are ways to address those concerns.
I'm in consideration of the 30-day to give them an opportunity to work things out. We'll discuss it further, like Dr. Cohen said, later on in the meeting.
Yeah, plus we'll have a little bit of time. 30 days isn't that long, and we'll have a little bit of time to see exactly what's going on, how extended this is going to be.
Yeah, we could also check to see what other communities are doing. I'm sure we're not the only one we face with this kind of with this situation. So we may want to find out what kinds of relief other communities are offering.
Also in executive session, and I'll say it in executive, I'll say it now, it's only certain businesses, it's not all businesses. We have to look at that.
And we need to see what Port Authority's
Yeah,
doing. Port Authority has
let's do it in executive session.
Okay, fine.
Let's go in executive session before the discussion.
Can you find out what Port Authority's doing?
Yeah, I'm sure. This is clients.
No, I'm saying the Port Authority's giving reprieves.
During the hurricane, Main Street did it during the hurricane.
I'm sure the tenants at Havenside could tell you what Port Authority is doing to the tenants down there.
He said he's sure the tenants at Havenside can tell you what Port Authority is doing. Because some of them are to say they have their tenants at Port Authority too.
I can call Mr. Dow.
Yeah.
Call Dow.
The fact that they didn't mention it, Mr. Nibs, lets you know that if they had gotten some kind of reprieve from Port Authority, they would have quickly shared that information with you at the last meeting. The fact that they didn't bring it up, they haven't gotten anything yet.
I don't know, I'm not sure. Like I know during the hurricane, Port Authority did, and this, the Main Street did. I don't know, but I will check with Mr. Dow. We don't need to go executive session, take a break.
Okay, so we will discuss this in executive session.
Yeah, we need to approve the budget.
Okay, the budget. So, Lord, Mr. Burry.
Yeah, I move that the Board of Trustees of the Employees Retirement System approve the operating expenditure budget in a total amount of $14,717,845 and a capital outlay budget in total amount of $4,698,164 for a grand total of $19,416,009 for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2020, for the purposes specified in the fiscal 2020 budget exhibits A and B, which are incorporated herein by reference. I also move that the administrator and the chairman be authorized to execute any and all instruments and documents necessary to facilitate the intent of this resolution. So move.
Need a second?
Second.
Was it second?
Trustee Carwood.
Yes.
Trustee Barry.
Yes.
Trustee Cohen.
Yes.
Trustee Liger, absent. Trustee McDonald, absent. Trustee Smith, absent. Chairman Callender.
Yes.
The chair, 4 yes, 3 absent.
Thank you. They finally have a 2020 budget. Yeah.
Motion to go into.
Okay. So we can take a break for an executive session.
Is my lunch drone headed my way?
So I need a motion to go into executive session, please.
All right, I so move that we go into executive session.
Based on?
You have to give a reason. You have to give a reason.
The reason being to deal with confidential legal matters as well as financial.
Need a second?
Second, I have a suggestion. In a lot of boards that I work with, they have a standard written.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Huh?
It's on the agenda.
Okay, didn't see it. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
This This portion
Oh,
of
yes, okay.
will be closed to the public for matters pertaining to trade secrets
There it is.
and
Okay, I got
financial and commercial information.
Trustee Colwood,
With that, okay.
Trustee Bowie,
Yes.
Trustee Cohen,
Yes.
Trustee Liger absent, Trustee McDonald absent, Trustee Smith absent, Chairman Callanan,
Yes.
Chair 4 yes, 3 absent.
All right. So we're going to take a few minutes break. Excuse me?
How many minutes?
3 minutes, 3 minutes break. 5 minutes break.
Yeah.
5-minute break.
And Dr. Cohen, they tried to deliver the food. They said you didn't answer the bell.